Everyone, in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed with the annual meeting. Are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the Record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record, subornate, and Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. For those that are not familiar with our process, we have what we call a combined meeting. We start off with a work session. Then, we'll probably stay in this room tonight with our public meeting. Public comment is taken right after we pretty much start the public meeting. So the first thing on our item, I'm going to ask for the indulgence of the council and move 1B ahead of 1A, Fister's Pond, because we have the director of the Nature Center here, and this way we finish that, he can leave. Our engineer is going to be stuck here for a while because there's a lot of items on his plate tonight.
I can make it quick.
Well, hopefully you're correct because it's on our plate as well. So the first item for discussion is Fister's Pond. And Peter, if you'd like, we have an empty seat right now until Councilman Barzalato shows up.
He's here.
He's here.
Where is he?
Yeah, he's probably using the facilities.
Have you seen him?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay, I'm sorry. False alarm. All right, so
Stand down. Up on the chair.
there's a couple of issues here with Fister's Pond. One is to decide which direction we're going to head, and the second is to decide if we can figure out what it's going to cost, because it's silly to talk about how we're going to fund something if we don't know what it's going to cost. So, Andy, do you want to take the lead? And Peter, when Andy is finished, we'll ask you for your comments.
So we were asked to look at Fister's Pond and come up with different options to kind of handle the situation there, which is it's getting overgrown with weeds, it's filling with sediment coming from the north, and if you've been down there, I don't know if you've been down there, take a walk down there, it's definitely having issues. It's starting to fill in, the outlet structures in poor shape. Weeds, especially the southern side of the pond, weeds are really filling in. There's a lot of sediment levels relatively high in the pond. If you don't do something with it, it's just going to keep filling in, keep growing, eventually just become a pass-through. The sides will start to fill up and it'll be a pass-through. So the question is what can you do? It's not abnormal that ponds have this problem. This is not just a pond in Tenafly has this problem. This is statewide that these issues exist, especially when you have a lot of nitrates and nitrogen that runs off the roads and a lot of sediment that comes off the roads because it kills your oxygen. Once it kills your oxygen, weeds flourish over everything else, and then the sediment starts getting in there, and next thing you know, the pond disappears. So we had met with Peter a number of times. We actually went out and did some testing out there. We looked at what can be done there. One of the things we looked at was possibly hydro raking, which is you actually put in basically a rake and start ripping the weeds out. Just not an option in this facility. Just doesn't work. You don't have good access, and it's just not the issue that you're having versus some other ponds. So we produced a report for you dated July 13th and pretty much gave you a number of options. We categorized them as low impact, low cost, moderate impact, moderate cost, and then really down to really just dredging or high impact. In your low impact options, it's an annual item. It could either be aquatic herbicides, it could be these digestion pellets. It can also be a winter drawdown where annually you draw it down as far as you could, let it freeze, let the sediment compact a little more, and then try to rip out whatever weeds you can rip out, and you'd kind of do that annually. You're looking at, in that range, the herbicides and pellet would be, let's say, $6,000 to $10,000 a year. The winter drawdowns probably bringing you upwards of $30,000 a year because you're going to be ripping weeds out and getting in there.
So these are annual costs to be, never ending?
Never ending cost. And a pond requires maintenance.
I'm not suggesting it doesn't. I just want to make it clear that it's not a one-time cost. It's a cost that would have to be built into either the Nature Center's budget or our budget.
Yes. When you get to the moderate options, it would be repairing the control structure, the outlet structure. When you kind of get down to the south side of the pond, that structure is in bad shape. You could introduce a carp into the pond, and that has a cost associated. But if you were to do that, you have annual costs associated with that. You have fish stocking. There's DEP permits for it. I don't know if we have a good cost on the carp. The dam the control structure, the dike rehabilitation can be costly based on the permits, but it's hard to put a cost on it because we don't know what the DEP is allowed us to do in that case. But I would think the impacts, the moderate, is going to, your costs are getting upwards or over 30, but below $100,000
Yearly.
Well, so once you rehabilitate this outlet structure, it's done. So that would be done. There might be some cost of cleaning it, but it's done. So that cost would go away. As far as introducing a fish to the pond, I don't know enough about it to speak about what the cost would be, but there will be some cost involved because you're going to lose some to, whether it be birds or so, and lose some to just freezing and thawing and stuff like that. So that's going to have an annual cost plus an annual DEP permit. Then you have dredging, and we said under the minor impact or moderate impacts, minor dredging. You could pick some of the areas out around the shoreline, specifically up north, where you have access and do some minor dredging to try to get some of that sediment out. But again, it would be minor. When I say minor, you could still be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because it is dredging. We don't know the contaminant levels of it. The last option is high impact, high cost, which is shut it down, drain it, fix the outlet structure, dredge the whole pond, and
We're talking millions.
Peter?
you could be talking.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
So
That's a quick summary.
that's a quick summary. So I have a question. So I read your report. Great report. Thank you. Very detailed. Peter, we have this committee. We haven't met in a while because we've been waiting for this report. You and I are on it, right, Dan? Where we met with the Nature Center. Perhaps after we go through this conversation, we meet with the Nature Center. There's a lot of details here. And then we come back and fill in the rest of the council and the mayor with what the Nature Center thinks. And
So it's you and Dan?
it's Dan and I think Peter.
Board president.
The board president.
And then
right.
and then Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably is going to take a few hours of conversations, I would think, ultimately.
I agree.
Peter, do you want to add? I have two questions for you, Peter,
Okay.
before you even start. One is, Andy mentioned nitrates from the road. The road, by the way, is on the north end, beyond the north end of the pond. It's a road a service road for the country club.
Right.
And apparently, over the years, a lot of the nitrates, a lot of the fertilizer, all the stuff, the chemicals that went into the golf course, a lot of it found its way into the pool. Never mind whatever they put on the road for
salt and all.
winter maintenance. I know you met with the country club. Has that
They've
improved?
stopped. They've stopped putting their storage facility. They were using the road as a storage facility, and they stopped.
Okay. The second and last question I have is, why, from your perspective, why do anything?
Biodiversity. Basically, if we let it, as you heard, he's correct. We're basically going to go from a pond to a wetland into basically a wet forest, and we have 80 acres of wetland and wet forest. We have that biotype. We don't have a pond. It's it brings more biodiversity. It's a part of the flyway for migratory birds, especially ones that fish and hunt. So that's the reason to keep the pond.
Are there fish in the pond now?
There are 3 species right now because of the low oxygen. I know there were other ones introduced, but right now, as far as the last time it was tested was 2006. They're bluegills, golden shiners, and then carp that people throw in. The goldfish that unfortunately people put in. They're all low oxygen. They can tolerate the low oxygen levels of the pond.
1 second, Max. So I think the process of the committee, which is made up of Dan and Mark, meeting with your people is the way to go, and then come back with some recommendations. And if you need to, out of these meetings, if you have questions for the engineer, try and get them answered prior to return. Okay, Max, did you want to?
Yes, after I read this report, I started studying all the different, and I have a few questions because in my mind, there is another solution. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Usually what I come up with is not exactly the best, but anyhow, I was looking at the way you have here at the minor impact. And the first thing is application of mud digestion pallets, which is not a high maintenance. We're talking $6,000 plus labor. So that can be done Yeah. Now, the big impact in the first one is the winter drawdown. And the winter drawdown is basically to destroy the weeds and pretty much all the aquatic growth that you have. In your phase 2 moderate impact, you do the same thing by introducing the triploid grass crab. So the carp, not crab, I'm sorry. All right, so I was wondering if we cannot replace the winter drawdown with introducing the carp in the low impact. The cost of the carp is fairly low, and as an experiment, basically will be around $10,000 a year, much lower than anything else. And the replacement of the carps, it's really a very low cost. We're talking a few $1,000s every year, and they would keep the vegetation in check. And that might be a different approach. There will be low impact, low cost that might produce the effect that we have in the middle type of approach. Can we do something like that?
You can. It addresses everything but the sediment level.
That's right.
Yeah,
Which
you can do what you're saying.
in the low impact, the first one, we don't address the sediment at all,
You do not.
and it costs us $35,000.
Right.
By replacing the drawdown with the carp, we still don't address the sediment, but we only cost us about $6,000-7,000. So it's something that we can trust and we can try in the beginning, and then we can maybe have a year or two to decide if we have to go to the next level, or based on the conversation, might not go anywhere. Because for sure, we're not gonna put $300,000 into this, and for sure, we're not gonna put $1.2 million into it. So that will be a experimental solution we can go and see how it works.
Is there, Peter or Andy, is there a downside to ignoring the issue with sediment for a few more years?
Well,
Yeah, but I would say this, as the sediment level gets higher, it really impacts your oxygen levels, because now the sun has a full influence over the whole profile of the water, the whole depth of the water, and the hotter the water gets, the lower the oxygen gets. So it's really a function of fighting that. An interim. Listen, we know that the major impact is you're looking at a couple $1 million project. So I know you're probably gonna have to look at something in between. I can't tell you what to do. Doing nothing, I don't believe, is a solution, because then you're just committing to turn into a wetland. It might not be if your budget's strained. I don't know where it is, but it might.
Well, I think, well, Peter, do you want to add anything to that?
well, I'm trying to figure out if anybody had a chance to read my comments.
Well, let's go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us
Let's
your
go.
comments?
Well, no. Let's go over your comments. I did read them.
So, I guess just to kind of try and get everybody in the right mindset, yet I think we're having two issues. You have sediment issue, which is inorganic. So it's like sand, silt, clay, those kind of. And then you have organic. The problem with the organic is that you're accumulating more than you break down. So the idea of the MD pellets, ideally, if they work the way they are described, is that you would break down quicker, and then you would see a reduction in the organic level, the muck, what's in the report's called muck. It's all the organic stuff that's from old leaves, plants decaying, animals decaying, the benthic, the microorganisms in the muck, all those things are in there. So with the pellets, I know those microorganisms, in order to be quick, they all need oxygen. There's low levels of oxygen in water to begin with compared to the air, 30% versus less than 1%. So we know that the pond has low oxygen levels most of the summer. So I think even for that to have a chance to work, you probably need to put in some sort of oxygenation system, which could be anywhere $4,000 or $5,000, something like that, in order for these to. So I think if you went that route, you would probably want to do a test maybe. It also might be a better alternative for after other solutions come to keep things, because you've got so much accumulation, you're asking these microorganisms to not only knock back the current amount of organic matter that's coming in, but backup time. So that's I'm the carp. I'm not really a fan of. One, because you're basically converting living organic matter to non-living organic matter. There are. If you read about it, I tried to read up on it mainly on educational sites, because you get some people say the greatest thing since sliced bread. Other people say they don't do what they want. Some of the issues that can be is that they may not eat the plants that you want. So I've read some places where they have preferences, and they're only going to eat their preferred, and they may not eat what you want them to eat. They're notoriously difficult to remove afterward. Now, they're triploid, which means that their chromosome structure, they basically treat the eggs to make them have an extra chromosome, which makes them unable to breed. So, but still, that's not ideal. We would prefer not to introduce another organism that can change the complexion. It can compete with waterfowl for food. There's a lot of almost better safe than sorry with that one. The hydroraking, basically my point was that if you can bring in equipment to dredge, you could probably bring in equipment that's smaller for hydroraking. There's different types of hydrorakes. I know there's some that can go as low as 2 feet depth of water, and probably could make it down. I had someone come out that said they could bring it down the main trail and come in that side. There's also a possibility that if you're building something to do a mini dredge, you could bring in those. So I think some of the minor, the lower cost ones, from my perspective, are more Band-Aid as opposed to solutions. They kind of treat the symptoms, but not the issue.
Well, so I think what we have here, I mean, for example, Councilman Bash, there's a whole bunch of potential processes that we could use. There's no guarantees, and getting the right mix is the problem. Getting the right mix of the various things that are suggested. He suggested one mix. There are a plethora of different mixes.
Absolutely.
So we're going to charge our committee with meeting with your people, and what we'd like to see come out of that meeting is a proposal. Twofold. One is what you'd like to do, and two, how you propose to finance it. What part, if any, the Nature Center people are willing to take on, and what part, if any, you would like the mayor and council to take on. You'll need Andy's help in pricing things out. You may need his help in trying to figure out the combination of work that you want to have done. But this is it's not the job of this body to come up with the solution. So we'll leave it. I know Mark and Dan have a big interest in this. You got to get it rolling, because we've been talking about this a long time. The pond isn't getting any better, and nothing's going to happen until you put a proposal on our table. So I think you now have the tools and the information you need to get started, and let's see where it goes. And Mark or Dan can let the clerk know when you're ready to make a presentation.
Okay, that's fine.
All right? Thank you, Peter. Appreciate your efforts. Next, we're going to go back to A, the municipal field turf replacement. Andy?
Okay, so a little while ago, Recreation had looked into possibly the replacement of the turf on the field here at the municipal complex. They had engaged Field Turf, who provided and installed the original turf out here a while ago. After that, we saw the prices. We were asked to go out and look at it. We did look at it. The field has reached its useful life. There's no doubt about that. The field does need to be replaced. We contacted Field Turf also to talk to them about what we think the scope of the project is, and we've looked at it from a perspective of both replacement, bidding, and recycling and that. So we believe that you could replace that turf. You could recycle some portion of it. So recycling some portion of it would be amount to maybe a half a cent, 50 cents to 75 cents a square foot, but you could gain some credit from recycling that turf and reusing it as I using the turf. You can purchase it through the
co-op. We don't have that study that you're looking at.
I'll get it there.
That's good.
So you could replace it through the co-op, a national co-op that most people use when they use field turf. The project would have the following. So you would have to bid the installation of the turf. You could buy the product of the carpet through a national co-op, or New Jersey requires you to bid the installation. So workmanship has to be bid. There's been a few cases recently where the state of New Jersey has decided that under our labor and union laws, installation workmanship has to be bid. So you'd prepare a spec to bid workmanship, you'd buy that. Once you get that spec in, you'd make sure you have enough money for that plus the carpet purchase. You'd award both together, and then you could have a contract that goes out, and you'd go through that process. Now, Field Turf gave me a document, which I didn't circulate to you because it's a little misleading because it has the workmanship in it. So our New Jersey regs and our local public council can't have the workmanship. So it can have, make it, package it up, deliver it here, unload it here, leave it on site, and then we have our own contractor come in, open it up, prep the site, install it, sew it together, do what they gotta do, put all the lines in, and then give it to us and turn it over to warranties and that. And both those companies have to warranty, each one of those
And we're
warranties.
not able to bid it together as to one company?
Why not?
You could.
Well, could we
would-
look at this almost like we did the garbage pickup, where we have different scenarios? We have companies come in and bid separately. We have companies come in and bid total. And then we can choose, if it's cheaper to go with one company for both, that's fine. If it's cheaper to go with two separate companies, fine.
Well, here's, I'll tell you, based on doing a lot of these recently.
Well, that's my next
Yeah,
question.
turf
have you
is
done
turf.
that?
Yeah, we do a lot of these, a lot. Millions and millions of square feet a year. Turf is just like buying carpet for your house. A number of states, Pennsylvania being one of them, Texas, I mean, probably 40 states have gone out and bid synthetic turf under massive quantity. Per square foot price,
okay.
it's hard for you to compete
I
with a
understand
local
that.
bid
Okay.
on your quantity. When somebody else's bid, they're
big,
guaranteeing them 3 million square feet of quantity, so you're getting a much lower price for the actual synthetic turf.
Okay.
And that includes delivery, and the inlaid lines are inlaid in it already. It includes them coming in and recycling your turf. It includes stuff
Okay.
that you can't get if you bid locally. You can try, and a lot of municipalities have tried, but when we have to, if you're going to join the co-op, which you must have done at one point in the past, we have to provide a evaluation for your attorney and administrator. It shows that using the co-op is cheaper than bidding it yourself. And you basically just on bids that were done around you by other municipalities that did what you're talking about. Then you would bid your installation, and that's site work. So site work's easy. You're going to bid it, you get a very competitive price. You'll have a number of contractors bid it, and you'll get what we believe is your best price. And that's what most people are doing now.
Okay.
Union County, for example, just pulled their bids back where they bid it all together, and they said this ain't working, and now they're separating out and going co-op and installation separate.
Okay.
Because these national co-ops, if I charge you for 100,000 square feet of turf, it's going to be a higher price than if I charge you for, until you can get 3 million.
Right,
So
so
that's-
we'll bow to your experience and expertise.
So what I would tell you is you're probably looking at a project that's somewhere as low as $500,000, upwards to no more than $650.
Does
What
that
do we
include
put- what do we-
workmanship? Sorry, Peter.
What
That's
did we-
everything.
What did we put aside last year?
I think we have 425.
Okay, so
So you're really close.
we're in good shape.
I think you are.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is I guess it would be for your 2018 budget year, correct?
Yeah.
So I can give you. I guess I have to wait for the new co-op bid prices will come out by the end of the year. Once I have those, I can take those square foot prices and give them to you with that price, so you know that price, and then anticipate the average price for the workmanship.
Okay, I think one thing we definitely want from you, though, is we want this installed in August. So if you have to do a timeline backwards, do it, but this is...
I can do the timeline right now. That means you're going to need to have a contract awarded for installation no later than March of next year.
We're not gonna have the money yet.
Did you, well, we don't have to have the money per se. As long as it's in the budget that's going to be approved, we'll be fine. Mark, did you want to add something?
No, that was fine.
Yeah.
Your installation for field this size would be a month. So if you were able to award the installation and the purchase, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to order the carpet and get it here, and it takes about a month to install it. So you need that time frame. The summer, everybody wants it done this summer. You want to be ahead of that curve.
Well, that's why I'm saying we need to plan in advance to get a
Yes, you do.
commitment. Max, yes?
Yes, you have said a few things. One of them that the field has outlived its useful life. Useful life is something that's very. What is physically making you think that the turf is not any more usable?
So what happens with synthetic turf, similar to carpet, because all this is a different form of carpet. It's
Yeah.
made by carpet machines. As you use it, it just wears. So the fibers wear down.
And did you look at the field?
Oh yeah, your fibers you're gone.
So the fiber is gone, so it's really, okay.
Have you walked the field at all, Max?
I looked at that at the side, but on the side it's not so
The
bad.
second thing you get is the seams where they meet.
Yeah.
When the seams are there on a carpet, especially on a high use field, they start to separate, so they start to resew them, and you can only do that so many times. So you start to actually get a concave at the seams, and that means the seams just broken down beyond.
Okay, the only question I have, and I'm not gonna start right now, is we are still waiting for that study that's supposed to be issued by the, regarding the carcinogenity or not of those fields.
What makes you say that we are still waiting for a study?
The whole world is waiting for the study, it's to see if it's really carcinogen or not. I don't think that you want to do something that later on might be deemed to be carcinogen. I don't think that you want to do something like that.
But we want to do something, and we did it 12 years ago, and it's worked out fine.
Yeah.
Now, you want to put this project on hold, Max?
The truth is that as long as we don't know, there are so many what it called anecdotal elements that show that this is carcinogen. I would not like to have something that it's not proof for the
So do you
municipal
want to put
thing.
this project on hold?
As far as I'm concerned, I would like to do that because I
And what are we
really
going
want
to do for a field? We can't use that field after this year. What do you suggest we do for a field? There has been no study that has proved this to be unsafe. You said it fairly well when you said there's anecdotal stuff.
Anecdotal evidence.
Everybody in the world is waiting for a study that's probably not going to come, if ever. So we either need to move forward or tell our kids we have no field to play on. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I understand your concern, but right now that's still very much speculation. And so if we stop the project, we've stopped it without really any justifiable facts of why we were stopping it. Now, that being the case, this isn't going to be voted on until next year's
Yeah, right.
budget
So good.
in March.
And
So
we'll
all of a
see by
sudden,
then if the
and
National Institute of Health is going to release the study or not.
then the whole country's got a problem on their hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
So what I
let's-
will tell you, and I said this in a couple of meetings publicly in Bergen County already, if the federal government was to find that this product is an issue, start ripping out everything in your buildings. This product is a mainline product used in almost everything we use every day. So I don't know if they're going to find it. I don't know if they will or they won't, but I know about a dozen statewide health departments in various states in the country have already said, we've looked at this and we're okay with it. So it's been determined okay. It's just that a number of people have elevated because of speculation.
Okay.
Right,
Max, you
right.
voiced
Good.
you voiced your concerns.
Right.
Next is we go to the swim club environmental assessment. We've got 3 items for the swim club: the cost estimate and the parking lot funding. I think that's a good order to take them at. Andy, you want to start with the environmental assessment?
I do. So you have a swim club, which I'll use the word underutilized, and there was a discussion of what can be done with it. And when you look at doing something with it, very similar to the Borough of Montville, because I went through this a year ago, they started saying, what can we do? And right away, everybody jumped to, well, what's inside the building? Well, what's on site? And it leads us to what we call phase 1 study. So phase 1 study looks at more chemical issues, whether it be asbestos or lead or underground storage tanks. It leads you to, are these problems on this site? Don't know if they're on this site, but they face the problem, which I think you have, is your swim clubs are usually close to wetlands and stream areas, and you want to really look at what you can do there first, and what you do there may determine what other testing you do. If you rip the building down and remove the pool, their lead, your asbestos, your underground storage tanks, you have to do all that testing anyway.
Yeah.
So it all has to get done at some point. If it even has any of it, it has to be tested. I think what we're looking for, what I think you should hone in on is really an environmental assessment of environmental regulations, wetlands, buffers, flood hazard areas, and see if you can actually build anything there. I don't know if you can even build anything
Well,
other than what's there.
the question that I have it, we have what we have there. Is there any disadvantage to moving forward with that property, removing the pools, removing the old house, the entranceway, perhaps the building in the back, which is the pump house, almost kind of like just leveling it off. At the same time, would you
So
recommend?
in your case, maybe. Different than the borough of Montville. The borough of Montville, their pool, though adjacent to a stream, was out of all the environmental constrained areas. It was out of flood hazard, it was out of wetlands, none of it impacted the property. In your case, we believe it has impacts. If it has impacts and you remove all structures, when I say structures, impervious area, and you decide you want to put it back, you're now constricted by whatever the DEP says you can put back under new construction. If you leave it there and it's there, and then you want to put something else back, they hold you to the impervious area you currently have. So we believe that you should go through with the environmental constraints first,
Yeah.
and then decide if you want to remove it. Obviously, you should make the area safe, you should keep the rule, but I would do that first and then do the second part second.
I think Andy is right.
Yeah.
We should understand what we have there, what we can do before we take anything down.
Yeah, we want to give you your buildable area.
Right, we want to know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, and that will tell us what we need to do.
I'm glad you're listening to our professionals.
And I agree with his assessment, I certainly will.
Now, are we talking phase one or phase two?
No, we would be talking just doing,
Phase one.
not really a phase one. We were talking about doing an environmental assessment, which is different than phase one. We're not going to look at the
Okay.
chemical
And you're
contaminants.
gonna give us a cost for that?
Yes, it will be not somewhat
Okay,
insignificant, but yes.
Should we want to proceed after that with a phase one or a phase one into phase two? There's no redundancy, right?
There's
Whatever
no
you've done
redundancy,
is
so it's
fine.
gonna-
So we're not gonna have to pay for the same thing twice.
What I'm telling you is to separate it now, to do one step at a time instead of doing it all at one time.
So I think what I see here at the table is that we want to get a price on that.
Yeah.
On the building.
Okay, so that's the environmental assessment. Now the swim club parking lot cost estimate.
I think you have that, correct?
We have that already, right?
You
Jewel?
gave it to us
Well, it was
375.
updated.
Right, so we've updated the cost to be, including what we believe is everything, to be around the number of 375,000. That would be to literally mill the entire parking lot. We're gonna have a lot of what we call blowouts or bad areas. They'd all have to be fixed, so those areas all have to be repaired. We have the sign, we need to put an island around it. We need some curbing around the edges, even if the curbing is at grade, because your edges break away really bad in that area. We need to replace that one fence along one side, and we need to upgrade that parking lot to meet ADA standards, the right handicap parking spaces, the right signs, the right access to the building that's there. So we need to do a few things for ADA accessibility.
Okay, so I think we're all resigned to that fact. We're resigned to the fact that the Board of Education will repay us 50% of the job, right, Jewel?
Yes.
Okay, what is it, next year, or half of that, the following year, the other half?
It's over
Over a period.
period of years.
Yeah,
Over a period of years. Mark?
So in terms of, as I look at the bill here, I have two questions. So this is a complete tear out of everything, the base,
New
the
park,
whole.
everything. This is a brand new parking lot to what I would consider the proper standards for a parking lot.
Okay.
This was really just when you look at it, it was originally some point way in the wee days it was just stone. And so we
Right,
paved some areas
right.
and so we paved other areas. And now you have a lot of paved areas that equal some depth of pavement that's inconsistent at best.
So
so,
I just have a second question.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the first item here, I just have to ask, I understand all these items here. What is mobilization?
So let me see if I can explain this properly because a lot of people misunderstand this sometimes. In every single contract that we do in New Jersey, we have to give the contractor somewhere to separate out his mobilization from his yard to your site, to stage himself on a site, stay there, and go back, because his machines and equipment and men have a cost. If I don't put the item in a job, and this is a DOT recommendation going way before I was even born, if I don't put in mobilization item in the job, they will bury that cost in the job. God forbid you ever go to litigation over a job, they're gonna put a high number on mobilization. So we get it out front right away. We say, what is it? What's it cost us? We know there's a cost for it. And that's why we do it that way.
Okay, so, thank you.
Max?
Okay, so, Andy, I understand this cost, which is now higher than what we had before. When we're gonna go out to bid, this cost is not gonna be a template for them to basically,
No, it's not.
okay. So it's not gonna be
We
something.
don't distribute this.
No distribute, but they have access because it's now in public domain the moment.
No.
It's a document that was produced here.
Well, what I can tell you about that, so you can play this both ways.
Yeah.
You usually find that if contractors get this, they have the max they bid, so they're fighting to be lower than this number. So usually it does help
Okay.
you, but we don't. It's only a guide. We never.
All right, okay,
You
so
know,
that's
we
what I
don't
want to be
distribute
sure.
that.
Okay.
Is this available to the public?
No, because it's deliberative material. The
Correct.
final action is if a contract's awarded, somebody can then open it to compare how close the estimates
So
were.
this is not public record.
We would, and we wouldn't.
Okay.
Okay, unless you leave it on the table and somebody picks it up.
We have it on the computer. Okay, all right, good, that's what I want to, and it's going to be a public bid, and we're going to
Yes.
have multiple.
Absolutely.
Okay, good, thanks.
And last but certainly not least is the funding. And, you know,
Okay.
we've talked about this in the past. And we'll go around the table and hear from everybody. I want to point out, and I've discussed this with a number of people, that we have our three professionals, our administrator, our CFO, and our auditor, who, given their druthers, would want to use the open space money for this. I've also found out from our attorney that when we get our money back from the Board of Education, this money can go back into the open space fund. So that the total cost of the open space is half of whatever the project is going to be. I just have 5 quick points. One is, there seems to be a sense that if we bond for this, it creates in some minds, some perception, a lack of stability because we've never bonded for something like this before. And of course, you have to take into account not only the cost of the project, but the cost of the interest. And obviously, it creates additional debt, which I'm not crazy about. The use of the open space and recreation funds. Recreation projects are eligible. This is tied into recreation because you've got a swim club there, you've got recreation programs on the field, and who knows, if we end up with a community center, that would be recreation also. If we use open space funds, and the total cost is somewhere in the neighborhood of $175,000, that will be replenished by the collection in less than 6 months. So I support that. The timing, I thought this might be an issue in timing, but it's been pointed out to me, and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, that if we did want to bond for this, we could probably do it in a manner that would allow us to get this project done at spring break.
Well, you could, but you'd have to do the ordinance by January.
Well, so we could.
Yes.
Okay.
When's spring break?
Spring break is in
We're
April.
looking at April 2nd through the 6th.
Okay, and I could point out that in March, we discussed this, and there was a consensus to use open space funds, but that doesn't matter because we are going to discuss it and decide tonight what we're going to do.
Oh, we have to,
Actually,
yeah, it's
the bonding
December.
ordinance would have to be
December.
done this year because of the timing.
Okay, well, it can be done. If we decide to bond, timing is not an issue at this particular point in time. So, Max, you want to start? We'll go around the table.
Yeah, I don't believe that the spirit of the open space fund would be putting a parking lot, even though it can be, you can always make an argument. But when you have to face the voters, it's basically this is for open space, green space, not to build a parking lot. It's not what people believe all the time. I'm not for it.
Paul?
I have to say that in looking at it from the spirit of open space, I cannot reconcile my conscience to say that a parking lot, to pave the parking lot and use open space money when we are really fighting for it to preserve historic sites or recreational sites. I can't do it, so I'm not going to support paying out of the open space fund.
Dan?
I agree. Can't use it.
Mark?
I think we should bond for this.
Tony?
I'm in favor of using the open space funds.
Okay, well, I think there's a consensus to bond. I would just like to say that despite the fact that I support using open space funds, I understand the reluctance to use open space funds for a parking lot. However, I think we're looking at the lesser of two evils. I do not support increasing our debt, and to me, this money would be replenished, and just as there might be some people that have an objection to using open space money for a parking lot, even if it's a recreation facility parking lot, there's going to be a lot of people that are reluctant to support open space if we don't spend any money, and we haven't spent any money. And like you suggest historic, but we haven't spent any open space money on historic, and as far as I know, there's nothing in the pipeline. But
We did.
Oresco Park.
Oresco Park, okay, I'm wrong. So anyway, there's consensus to bond. Susan, we need to make sure that this gets done in a timely way.
Okay.
So anything that needs to come before the mayor and council, you have a copy of our schedule. We need to make sure that money is available to us for April spring break.
Okay.
All right?
I guess the question I have, because this is something that comes up pretty regularly. We each year apply for open space monies from the county. And as opposed to using our open space trust to provide the match, we consistently use debt. So does that mean that going forward, we can count on using open space funds to pay our 50% portion of the project?
For what
For what
project?
project?
Which project?
Any project. We've renovated all of these,
All the parks.
all the parks and all the playgrounds.
Playsites, playgrounds.
For parks, playgrounds, absolutely.
Well, we didn't use open
Well,
space.
look, there was a question, what do we do? We had a chance to use open space for 53 Knickerbockers. We didn't have the money.
No, that's not why we didn't buy it.
Let me just-
We didn't
This
have a use for
preceded.
the property.
Yeah,
This was
well,
long
you
before
could make a park out of the very
The only thing
nicely.
you can say is, what we're doing today is a total change in policy.
Absolutely,
And I say that because if we're going to take on additional debt for the parking lot, then I would like to know that in the future, we can offset taking even more debt for every application that we submit to the
So Mark and
county.
then Dan.
So for example, like.
Hold on, Mark, and then Dan.
So you raise a good point, Jewel, right? We went out to the voters, voted to use the open space money for open space and recreation. And I think it's important that we use that money for that. And a parking lot, a standalone parking lot is not in the spirit, it's not open space, it's not recreation. But
understand.
you've raised this point, and so if we need money to fix a park, whatever park it might be, or to build a new park, that's a completely valid use
Exactly.
of the open space money to relieve other debt burdens. And I would support that completely. So you've raised a good point.
Dan?
What he said, same thing.
Okay, so let's move forward. Next is another, in my mind, a tough one.
Let me see, is there anything else that we, just want to double check and see if there's anything we would like Andy to provide any input on. The skate park issue is not necessarily, I know that you're familiar with that type of
Speak out if you
facility.
want.
Well, I would like to hear, because I'm sure our situation is unique, and whatever experience you and your firm have with skate parks, I think
A lot.
would help us, because we're at a crossroads here with the skate park. The maintenance costs, much of which is a result of misuse. Kids are in there with bikes, kids are in there with scooters. I was a proponent of building a skate park. We had a group of young students that came in and said, you build it, we'll oversee it. To a certain degree, they did. Well, those kids have aged out of the program. I'm not even sure what percentage of the users are from Tenafly. Not that that's a not that, you know, we have nice facilities, they're open to all. But when it comes to putting money into it, we have to spend it where our residents get the benefit of our dollars. I put a call into the schools, asking them to announce the situation in the middle school and the high school, suggesting that if there are kids in those schools that are really into skateboarding, they ought to let us know. I've got not one response. Before we shut this down, if that's what we decide to do, I would want to give them one more chance, because I do take pride in the fact that we're one of the few towns that has a skate park. And, you know, even if kids from other towns come here, it's still something to say that, you know, we're providing. I get pride out of driving down River Edge Road and seeing a soccer cage and a skate park and tennis courts and basketball courts. And the basketball courts are used by a lot of kids from out of town also. But it's nice to be able to provide all these things for our kids, give them a place to go, something worthwhile to do. But Andy, what has been your experience throughout the state when municipalities get to this point?
So it's a little similar to turf in that when these turf fields first started going in, when these skate parks started going in, because yours are similar to age, they've improved on it since then. So the structures you put in now, 10 years later, are a lot better. They're a lot less maintenance. They're a lot less maintenance. They're a lot more maintenance free. They provide a lot more durability for vandalism and other types of just damage from kids abusing it. And there are other options out there. There's a lot of structures that can now be put in that are concrete. And we just did a brand new skate park in the borough of Roselle, and the entire skate park, all structures are made of a precast concrete structure.
Is the area, the footprint much bigger
It's
than
big,
ours?
yeah. In that case, it's bigger than yours. And in your case, you're probably going to need to stay with structures that are bolted down, very similar. But they have improved those structures in 10 years.
Can you, off the top of your head, give us a ballpark figure if we were to redo the skate park? What would it cost?
So I would tell you, based on my walk over there, you should redo the surface. So you should put a new surface down. That would be my suggestion. You probably put it over the top of the surface. So you're probably going to spend $50,000 to repave it. And I would say if you use the same structures you have there, you're probably spending another $100,000 for all new structures. Because if I'm going to remove one, I'm going to remove all 5 of them.
Now, 2 questions, and I don't know if you can answer one of them. Obviously, we could use open space money for
That's
for
a part.
this. The second is,
It's open space
is there
budget.
county money or grants out there to cover our half of, half of the project?
I would tell you probably need to be a little creative, and if we could, I have not done one yet, so this would be a first. But we might want to look at a park that would have accessibility. So it would be open to people with some type of issues for accessibility, but they'd have a park that they could use also. If you did that, you'd probably open yourself up to funding for the park. Other than that, I don't think the county would fund. I don't think, Jewel, like you were speaking of, as it is, I don't think they would fund
I don't
it.
think it would be a strong application.
I don't think it would be. Unless we
Dan,
say
do you
we're
have
creating a one-of-a-kind park that can be used by people with and without disabilities, that'd be a pretty interesting argument to me.
Dan, you have any thoughts on county money for that?
No, I do not, I'm sorry.
Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think, as we go down this road, I think we should investigate it. It's a great idea, asking the schools. I think, the basketball facility, the soccer cage are fabulous. And one of the, we really don't, other than overuse at the soccer cage, we don't really get any complaints about either of those facilities. And I think a big part of that is they're out in the open. And so I think we need to look at the skate park and figure out how, in a planning process and studying, how we make that area more open with less vegetation around it so it could be seen from the street. And I think the situation over there will be a little calmer.
Andy or Bob, when we built the skate park, I believe we just put it on top of the tennis courts. We didn't resurface it, did we?
I wasn't.
I think if you,
It was existing.
I'm sorry?
It was, you put it in over
Peter?
existing.
Because I think you can even see the tennis lines
Yes, you
still.
can.
One of the things, I'm sorry.
Doesn't
You
matter.
might
Go
want
ahead,
to,
and then after I'll ask.
perhaps we can like trade locations. In other words, if it's a half an acre of asphalt, move it to something closer to the street and then turn the current asphalt into green again so that the actual, we don't gain or lose anything, but we move it closer to the street.
Well,
It's gonna raise your cost.
It's a question
I'm
because
not exactly sure if we have a similar size of asphalt other than parking lot. You can't put parking in the middle of the park.
Understood, I agree with that, yeah, but I'm just saying it's something we should look at.
Max?
Okay, I think that we should do two parallel things. One is going to be to study if we have a grant, and we said. Secondly, we have to understand how used is the existing skate park, and how many kids in town. Well, it's okay for other kids to come in and play, are really using it, because if it's not a big need from the kids in town, then we should not just spend the money for kids in other, it's okay to come, but not to build
I think
another
we all agree
250,000.
about that.
Yeah, so those are gonna be two things in parallel to understand what we need to do.
Dan, please?
The point of the skate park is to keep the kids off public properties. So I grew up with the skating when it was skating and BMXing blew up. It was to keep kids off the curbs and waxing down like planters.
That's an excellent point. I mean,
It's-
as
that's
much
the
as
whole
we
point of it.
occasionally get a complaint about skateboarders downtown, if you didn't have a skate park, there'd be a lot more downtown.
Right.
But I think the first thing we need to do is get a sense of the use, how many of, is there a demand
Yes.
from our young people in Tenafly for a skate park? Mark?
So there's a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds who do skating, so in addition to the high school, we really should be talking to the middle school principal?
I did.
Oh, okay, I thought you just
Middle
talked to
school and
high
high
school.
school.
Okay.
But I think, first of all, from a safety point of view, if we're going to do the skate park again, we need to have visibility. It
Yeah.
needs to be seen from the street. I don't know if that's possible from the location that it's at. Obviously, we can remove any vegetation that we need to remove.
Right.
It's not by the pond, so we're not affecting the pond environment. But it's something to look at, Bob. Maybe you can give us a sense if you think that's doable.
Can I just make one other suggestion? If you decide to redo your skate park, what we found very successful in the last 10 years is the group that's going to tell you they want it, you should engage them to come up with some designs for you. So you should ask them what they want. Do they want boxes to jump on? Do they want rails? Do they want higher? I don't know if they want, but
That's
they
exactly
do have.
how it went the first time.
That's the way it should go this
around.
time too.
We had a committee of young people that worked through the rec board,
Feel good.
and they were very
That's
good.
great. That's great. Do that again.
Unfortunately, they all graduated.
They're one of your council members.
Well,
Next, so I will communicate once again with the middle school and high school. I'll be honest with you, I was not overwhelmed by the reception I got as far as, cooperation. But I'll let them know that, the future of the skate park really depends on
This is a
their
simple
feedback.
experiment. You lock it down for a week.
Well,
Let's see how many.
It's been locked for a long time.
I know. Let's see how many complaints do we have in town. If you have no complaints, it means that nobody cares.
Well, I think the only complaint we've got so far is the guy that cut the lock and put his own
Which
lock on.
maybe somebody from the other town, so you never know.
We
That I
don't
think we can
really,
register as a complaint.
Yeah.
we don't really get complaints.
No.
And because people know that when it's closed for
For repairs.
repairs.
Yeah, but if you say this is permanently closed, let's see how many people start complaining. Permanently closed.
Next is a request from our Director of Recreation in regards to Mark Slauson, spending a little bit more of his working hours coaching. And Jewel, do you have anything to say about this?
We did it last year, and it seems to work. We didn't identify any problems. I don't know if Councilman Barzalato, if the Teen Center Committee had any issues during that time.
Mark, from Recreation standpoint, any issues?
you asking me? No, he had no issues at all. And I
You're
talked to him.
Recreation, right?
Yeah, I talked to him the other day. We were out in the field together. He loves it. He's enjoying it.
Well, even more important than that, I've had some comments made to me about how fortunate we are to have Mark as a coach.
Yeah.
He's really a special guy.
He enjoys
and I
it.
think he's part of the reason why we have a little bit jump in the enrollment this year. We were able to field 3 different level teams, Pee Wee, Junior, and Senior, where last year we didn't. So we keep our fingers crossed, because this, football program, like most football programs in a lot of towns, is on life support.
Yeah.
And it would be a shame to lose it. If we lose the recreation football, the high school football is going to go some
It's a
point
follow,
too. It's a
right?
feeder
Follow.
program.
So we'll submit the resolution for September 26th.
Thank you.
Peter,
Last-
just, can I make one comment? Just about Jamie, I've been, my son happens to be playing rec football, and my daughter's involved in some stuff too, and Jamie is out there, like, she's out in the field, she goes to games, she's out there giving out helmets, so that's very commendable.
Chris,
for her.
can she tackle?
I don't ask those questions.
My son's the quarterback
But
for
it's-
the
Now,
fifth,
now,
sixth grade
why do you
team.
want to
She's
know
always there.
that?
It's great.
No, well, because we lost, two kids got injured. The first week there was a game.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the next thing is the soccer cage sign. I think
Yeah.
this is fine with everybody.
The truth is that I would expect a little bit more of a, is this going to be the design or with a white on black?
No. It's going to be, I believe, a wooden,
It's a bronze plaque.
I'm
It's a
sorry?
bronze plaque, right?
Bronze.
A bronze, okay, yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lisette, when you contact them, let them know that we want to be notified as to when the dedication is or when the ceremony is,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, also, I should put them in contact with Recreation, because they are replacing the fences. You don't want them to put it on the fence that will be replaced.
I thought that happened, a higher, bigger fence.
That's still impossible. Just to make sure that it's in
Happened.
the proper panel.
Okay. Next is our administrator's report.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. Okay. The Safe Streets to Transit application. This is a program that has been in existence for a while. Your eligibility to participate can actually vary from time to time. And right now, we feel is that this is an appropriate time for the borough to pursue submitting an application. This would be in addition to our annual municipal aid application that we're submitting for Section 2 of Piermont Road. As indicated on here, the deadline for the applications is October 6th, and if the council approves the resolution that we have on for this evening, authorizing Mazer to prepare the application, then we would have the resolution to submit this application as well as the municipal aid on the agenda for the September 26th meeting. I'd also like to add, we've been getting a lot of assistance and support from the police department. They've done an amazing amount of research, and they've already begun, pulling together the basis for what we need. And it's very ironic that we thought about doing that this year, because we've actually had 2 pedestrian accidents downtown since we even started pulling together our information. Captain DiMancata has actually had to send 2 additional police reports to Mazer. So we think that the timing for this is very good. And I think the most important thing is, as I indicated, this is obviously taking off from the pedestrian circulation study that we had done previously, but this is not the or at least $1 million project that we had
What is this
envisioned
about?
before. What this is for is to deal with the fact that we have several intersections downtown that have lights, either by virtue of their location and position, which have a tendency, unfortunately, to confuse both drivers and pedestrians. And it's resulted in a higher, or what we consider an unacceptable number of both vehicular and pedestrian accidents. This particular grant is driven by the pedestrian accidents. But as I indicated, we've actually had 2 in the past 2 weeks.
And what is it about? I mean, to research the lights, rearrange the center. What is the purpose for this whole thing?
The purpose would be to look at the location of the lights. We actually have a study that did it already, that identified the locations where there is a tendency for traffic conflicts and cross traffic, which causes both a higher than usual number of car crashes, as you can see on the police
Yeah.
reports that we get daily.
All the
And the
time.
majority of those accidents are in downtown. We have things that are unique or unusual in the way our lights are positioned, the angles from which you can see them. We have like 3 roads of traffic feeding into one intersection. We've got some anomalies
Yeah.
in our
And this
in
is
our
gonna be a
traffic
study?
patterns.
What is it?
The study was already done.
So what are
and-
we apply for a grant to do what?
The grant would be to realign some of the intersections, not the physical, but the lights themselves. Reposition them, move them,
Okay.
change the timing, many of the suggestions that were included. And what I would do, just for your reference and information, is I will send out the original study that
Okay,
was
that's-
done again, so you
We
can see the
appreciate it. Thank you.
background.
Mark?
So will this include the intersection at East Clinton and Dean also?
No,
This is mainly the intersection with Washington Avenue, Hillside, and Piermont Road.
the heart of the downtown, where people actually cross.
Catty-cornered from
Right.
Where the railroad.
Cafe Angelina.
Right.
Okay, so
Bus
just
stop.
to go kind of off
Yeah, the
script.
East Clinton doesn't go away.
No, so
Yeah.
just to go off script on this, because we're talking about traffic issues, in the event something moves forward or gets contemplated with the Clinton Inn, perhaps we should figure out in the future how we tie in reconfiguring that whole intersection there as part of that mini Clinton Inn project.
Agreed. In
Because
fact,
that's a
yeah,
mess.
that was discussed in the past, and I think that was the only intersection that would have involved actually taking.
From Barrett's,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But that intersection's a nightmare.
right. But yes, I agree. I
But,
think
you know,
it's another
The
opportunity.
interesting part about it is, as much of a nightmare as it is, the accident reports do not
Reflect that.
reflect it.
Right.
It's,
Mm, because it's-
which boggles my mind, because
Less
all you
of
have to
a
do is sit
pedestrian.
there for 10 minutes and you see people going through the red
Right.
light.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's a less of a pedestrian traffic than it is downtown.
Right.
The number
Well,
of
there's
people.
two separate issues,
Yeah.
right? One is pedestrian, one is
Yeah.
vehicular.
Okay, and if we are to talk about that, I know that we're gonna be talking later on about the mid-block crossing lights. We have asked for a flashing light. I've been part of the meeting at the corner between Highwood and Magnolia, specifically for the kids.
Who's
Yeah.
who's asked for this?
The Chief Chamberlain
Excuse
was
me?
just was at a meeting at the senior citizens committee, and the senior citizens, 3 people over there.
It's
ask-
actually addressed later.
Okay, it is. Oh, then I'll wait for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the Oresco Park RFP, we received 5 responses. Earlier on, I thought that we had received 6, but one was actually a duplicate. The firm mailed it and also emailed it as well. What I would like you to do, if you could turn past the page 3 of the memo, there is an attachment regarding the park itself. You see that the total project funding, including both the anticipated design and construction work and improvements, is $100,000, and we allocated an additional amount for the design and other professional services. We are looking to provide landscape design, monument installation. Could also add monument design, but we already, as you recall, had some proposals from a firm that had been contacted by the HPC. It would also include bidding and construction administration services. The little chart below shows you where we are currently in the process. So we're at the point where we're bringing you up to date on what we've accomplished so far. We indicated the selection criteria, and just to review the submittal portions, as I indicated, we received 5 proposals. We evaluated them based on the above criteria, and there you see how they fared in terms of their overall outcome with respect to what we're looking for from a viable firm to undertake this work. You see the range in prices for the professional fees. But I'd like to remind you that this is what's called competitive contracting, not bidding. So we are equally as concerned about the team's ability to carry out the job and the firm's reputation and ability to understand what it is we're trying to do as much as we are cost. We actually wind up narrowing it down to a single firm that met only 100% total of everything that was requested. That firm, if you'll turn to the next page, is identified in the line under recommendation. And what we would like to do next, and this is following a meeting that we had with the HPC on September 7th. They're basically our partner in this effort. And I gave them a full report. The only thing that I did not provide to them at that time was the specific recommendation in terms of the name of the firm that we're interested in. You see the listing of individuals that would be involved in the interview process and what the next steps are. The next page, the Oresco Park RFP evaluation sheet, was also not shared with the HPC at that time because this is a deliberative piece. And this was, as you know, a much larger spreadsheet. But I narrowed it down to those portions that were most informative and most critical with respect to the firms and their ability to basically meet our requirements. You'll see that the firm that I'm recommending is shadowed in gray.
It happened to be the most expensive one.
Well, if you look at my notes, and that's why I said you can't just look at dollars, okay? A lot of the other firms, which ultimately, as you can see from the very last column, didn't qualify with respect to meeting all of the requirements. One of the firms, for instance, I indicate very clearly, they did not include work that we know is going to be a logical part of this job. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the best proposal, the most complete proposal, and the proposal that is most realistic with respect to the cost, as opposed to having a situation where we're dealing with multiple change orders because all of the costs were not accounted for. The third firm on that list I noted, which I thought was very interesting, the list of what they didn't account for was longer than the list of what they did account for. And many of those things that they listed will involve cost. So they're talking about submitting at one price, but ultimately the final price would be significantly higher than what they proposed. And then you'll also see that there was a firm that came very close in price to the firm that we're recommending, but unfortunately, their information was very generic and did not give us any confidence that they were focusing on our needs and our unique qualities with respect to the project that we described for them very clearly.
So, Jewel, this recommendation was made by the committee?
This recommendation was made by me and reviewed with the committee.
Okay, and the committee agreed?
Yes.
Paul, you on this committee?
Yeah, this is a subcommittee. She brought the recommendation to the Historic Preservation Commission,
Well, but-
which seemed to be,
Both the subcommittee and the HPC felt this was the right thing to do?
It was brought before the full HPC.
Right. The
What you see
subcommittee's
here.
not.
Mark?
So, Joe, based on the way I understand it is so that the firm you're recommending, their price is an all-in number.
Correct.
And other firms didn't include, it's not all-in, it's like, it doesn't have surveys included, okay.
Yes. And you can see that there are gaps and there are things that are going to come back as cost, even though they didn't account for them up front.
Okay.
Tony?
I do have another question, too.
The monument, who is approving that?
The monument will be approved by the project team in conjunction with the design consultants. And as you can see, the project team includes 3 members of the HPC.
I would like to be on that team also, because I think that's, this is very close to me. So
Certainly.
I really want to look on that, please.
Peter, I have another question for Tony's done.
Thank you.
Mark?
So does the cost of this professional firm, is that included in the $150,000 budget, or is it on top of?
It's included,
It's included.
right. We separated the work from the professional
Okay.
fees.
And the professional fee is basically a management fee?
No,
It's
it's all of the design, it's all of the meetings, it's the renderings, it's everything that they would do as a professional, everything other than the construction.
Okay.
But it does include their construction management
Right.
cost and the bidding cost.
I just want to voice my concern. I'm not happy at all with Davis Johnson Park, the lights that went in there. You know that.
Mhm.
And I think the complaints I have are valid. Those, first of all, they're not attractive, the lights. They're too bright. And, you know, if you drive through Davis Johnson Park at night and see the lights I'm talking about in front of the gazebo, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to have that happen in this park. So I think at some point in time, a cursory review by the entire mayor and council.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
That's included.
Including, Tony, the monument too. Nothing should be approved without us knowing exactly what's going on. Because
Right. When I say that we have a firm that included everything, that included even the meetings that we requested, the meetings we anticipate with the project team, as well as meetings with the mayor and council.
Okay, senior transportation program.
Just one more question.
Sure.
When we issued here, we issued from the beginning not an RFP, but an RF, whatever you want to call it.
RFP.
RFP, request for proposal, but not a binding RFP.
Well, RFPs are never binding. We always include language to that effect. When are you talking about binding versus bidding?
Yeah,
No, this isn't bidding. This was prepared under DLGS rules for what's called competitive contracting. That's a separate set of regulations. That's because you don't want to bid certain things, because you're not looking to just go with the lowest price.
and we knew that in advance.
Yeah.
Well, we know
Yes.
that in advance, and that's usually very true of things that are
We
design
discussed
oriented.
that at this table numerous times, that we weren't going to go out to bid. I mean, and Julie just explained exactly why. Because going out to bid is wonderful, but quite often you get stuck with somebody that, you know, and you don't have to go any further than the DPW building to understand.
This gives us the
The
opportunity.
downside of it.
Right, this gives us the opportunity to partner with a firm. We get to feel each other out, and they have to show us that they understand our aesthetic and what we're trying to accomplish with this memorial park.
I share your reluctance, Max. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but, you know, we've got 2 committees, the HPC and this subcommittee, that are reviewing everything as well. So
Okay.
I think we're okay. And
Okay.
senior transportation program, and I
Sure.
must tell you that, I don't want to say I bumped into it, but I drove by our senior bus today in Fort Lee, and then again down in Tenafly. It's nice.
Yeah.
Are you following the bus?
Around.
No, I think they're following me. Just because I had a birthday, there's no reason to put me on that senior bus.
Uh-oh. The part that's here on the front page is actually very short. This is just to let you know that there is attached a preliminary report. It was agreed at the outset that we would take a look at the program in its first 3 months of operation to get an idea of how we were progressing and how the program was operating. So if you will turn after the last page on the, after the RFP evaluation sheet, there is a draft report. And the reason it is a draft report is because in addition to providing the governing body with some indication of how things are going, the transportation coordinator and I are also scheduled to do a presentation to the Senior Services Committee at their next meeting on October 2nd. By then, we will have flesh this out even more. But we do have the data. What we would probably be doing is digging a little bit more into the operating cost and looking at that aspect of the program and whether or not we're getting the best bang for our
And
buck.
we
and
should
things of that sort.
expect, as the winter comes, the number of riders are gonna increase exponentially, because much less people drive in the winter than in the summer.
Well, I think you're gonna see numbers go up anyway, because
Yeah.
the people
Besides the-
becoming aware of the program.
Besides the program, the fact that the
Well, when there's snow,
weather,
absolutely, but.
weather when it's bad.
So, at the, let's see, we basically I just reiterated some of the basic guidelines at the top, so just to remind you of what the eligibility requirements are for travel. With regard to registration status, it grows at least once a week, we pick up a few more people. So we're even past the 66 persons that we were as of September 7th. And this information will be updated, so by the time we meet with the Senior Services Committee, it'll be the most current for that particular time period. We indicated that a lot of this registration came from later word of mouth, but initially the fact that we actually published the registration form in the newsletter that was published in June, and we'll be doing that again for the October edition that's currently in preparation. Finally, at the bottom, I just gave you an overview of some of the takeaways, some of the lessons, and what the data reveals based on the first 3 months of operation. We looked at the distances that people are traveling. As you know, we have roughly a 10-mile radius, which includes, I believe, about 14 to 15 communities. But it's narrowing down, at least at this point in time, to a group of communities, which is where the bulk of our riders seem to go at this point. We do feel that we're meeting the goal that was established in setting up this program. As you know, prior to this, obviously people could use either their personal vehicles or the various ride services, but some of the senior citizens don't feel as comfortable with Uber and Lyft as maybe some of our younger residents. And although the county does offer transportation, because they are servicing such a large area, they require a 2-week or 14-day lead time to make a reservation. And so we here in the borough only request 2 days. And quite frankly, if there's a real emergency and there's not a conflict with the time, we will help somebody. Because there are times when people are just hearing still about the program. So we try to be flexible. Right now, there's kind of like a wait and see with respect to proposals that have been pending about using the bus for larger scale trips and organized events. But what we're seeing right now is that doesn't seem to be the main driver or impetus for the people who are currently using the bus. It was very fortunate, in fact, that we actually did have an opportunity to also look at that form of ridership, because we had 3 opportunities: the senior picnic with the PBA, the county's annual senior picnic, which is taking place tomorrow, and the upcoming community night, which we have scheduled for September 19th. Basically, what we're finding is that we're getting, for these instances, only a handful of people who are signing up, in spite of the fact that they've had over a month to sign up. I listed specifically what we did. I mean, it's been on the website, it's been at the senior center. We sent out letters, we sent out emails, just about every form of communication that you could send, as well as putting the flyers on the bus itself. And the outcome was that we had, I believe, 4 people for the PBA senior picnic. We previously had 6, but we now have 8 people for the picnic tomorrow. And as of right now, for community night, we have 2. So, and that doesn't mean that people don't appreciate or want the service, but what it's telling us that right now, they're more interested in service for their personal
Well,
use.
You're giving us a good handle on what the demand is so far, but that can change as more people get aware of the program. Mark, please?
So based on your statistics here, it looks like you do have people that are repeat customers.
Oh, yeah.
We have repeat customers, and
That's good.
every week we pick up new customers.
Question.
Good.
If you remember at our last meeting, I circulated a picture which the nuns up at the
Yeah.
convent had sent me. There were at least a half a dozen of them that took a trip down to the Hudson River, I think. How did that get arranged? I mean, they call up and ask for a ride, and there's 6 of
Correct.
them? So,
Well, that was different because that was arranged by the group.
right,
And the group, they asked for,
transportation.
they asked for transportation. They knew the number of seats that we had available, so they brought us a group intact.
So they all registered,
Right.
and so they were dropped off and picked up. Okay, that's
Correct.
great. I mean,
And they were dropped off at the beginning of the day, picked up at the end of the day, and we still had a regular
within the
service.
hours of service.
Correct.
Okay.
This program, the bus, it's, as far as I know, as far as the feedback I got, one of the most successful, if not the most successful program. People are so thankful.
It's
Anytime I go
unbelievable.
to the senior center for this bus, like, this is something that was
Well,
like.
I think this report that you've provided is very, very thorough, and I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
And we'll be enhancing it with additional information as well.
Okay, next is the message board. Good news, I
Message
hope.
board, yep, it's in production. We anticipate delivery by the end of September and follow up with the installation by mid-October. And we also have, I believe, after this report, there is a rendering of what our new message board is going to look like. One of the things that we'll need to do is we'll need to revise our message board request form. We will not be changing the requirements for eligibility, but the main difference is this, our new board has a much larger screen. So whereas before people were confined to 5 lines of type with 20 letters each, this can go as much as 7 rows, and we can have as many as 37 characters per line.
That's great.
Okay.
It also has other capabilities too, like
It's
scrolling and things like that.
Scrolling
How
and
about colors?
color and graphics, it's going to be
And does
very
it have
nice.
like live, can you have live segments
Give
put on?
graphic? Live segments?
Yeah, let's say a short video.
I'm not sure about video, but we can have graphics. I'm not sure that.
Graphics, I understand,
Right.
but the static. Can you have anything dynamic put on?
You know, have
Well,
like some guy running across
Okay, graphics. Yes, we can
Moving
have
graphics.
animated graphics.
animated.
Animated
Right.
graphics.
I thought you were talking
but
about
no-
videos.
Yeah, videos I was reading.
No, it's not
It's not videos, but it's
yeah,
graphics.
It's graphics.
Mobile graphics.
Yeah,
Alright.
animated
That's
graphics.
great.
Go to the movie theater if you want to see it.
Thank you, Tony.
All
Okay,
right, bus scheduling software.
Bus scheduling software's, update on that, the training is scheduled for tomorrow. John Sullivan, not tomorrow, Wednesday. It's scheduled for Wednesday. So John Sullivan will be present, as well as obviously the bus scheduler, and Lizette's new administrative assistant, Pam Connors, is going to be our backup bus scheduler, and she will also be in attendance. And the software will also be loaded onto her computer here. So when she's covering for Christina, she can do it from here and does not
Great.
have to go to the senior center. Okay, senior transportation community awareness. This I thought was interesting. Just letting you know that not only is word of our program getting out within town, it's also getting out to places where we take our residents. And we were pleasantly surprised to get a call from Hackensack University Medical Center, wanting to know what our requirements were, and they would basically just let people only from Tenafly know if they indicate that they have any transportation issues, they would apprise them of our service. And we gave them permission to contact us as well directly and let us know. So we're in contact with one of their full-time community service workers.
That's nice.
Okay. And then we already talked really about the transportation and the
Yep.
status of where we are. With regard to the mid-block crossing, which Councilman Bash raised, the issue there was that we did talk about having lights, and the very last page is, last two pages is a memo from Chief Chamberlain. Essentially what happened was the county came in while the chief was in the process of getting the cost of the lights, because we had talked about having the solar powered lights.
The flashing ones?
The flashing ones, and as you can see, that cost was almost $27,000.
That's from one source.
That's from our contractor. Our contractor. And in the meantime, Bergen County came in and put up these large reflective pedestrian signs on both sides of the road. And in addition to that, the intersection is already supplemented by the police portable sign that is there
You
as well.
also might have noticed that the contractor that has been given the job of lining the streets in town has been very active the last week or so, and very, very visible lines. It's amazing.
The technology, the materials keep improving.
Yeah,
And-
he was downtown
yeah.
today, and you'll see the crosswalks are really much brighter and much more visible.
And
than
they're
they ever
reflective in the dark as well, and that's the case with this sign. So where this particular, where our mid-block crossing is concerned, the chief at this point has recommended in writing that we not proceed with the flashing lights at a cost to the borough, since we have basically had the intersection already enhanced with safety features provided by the county at no cost to the borough. And then with regard to the other areas that you were discussing, essentially, what did he say about it? You can just go to his memo. He touched on the fact that you had mentioned some other things, and he said that he's going to have Sergeant Bazzo find out what the holdup is on getting those remaining quotes. But if you're looking at the same kind of lighting, I'm not sure that the cost is going to be significantly
Be the same.
different.
Be the same. Okay, let's move
Can
on.
I ask a question, please? Before the meeting, I have checked a few of those slides on the internet, which is quite different. Prices quoted on the internet for those flashing lights, pedestrian like this ones, for example, are in between $1,500 to $1,700 quoted. I was wondering if I can have the permission of the council to ask the town of Englewood to see how much did they pay, because they have flashing lights like that all over if you go on Dean, and so we kind of get
Well,
an
keep
idea.
in mind that you have to compare apples and apples.
That's-
If you just want flashing lights.
You see the
that-
lines I'm talking about.
I understand, but the cost that we were asked for solar powered
Which are
flashing
solar
lights.
powered. They are
I-
solar powered.
They're all solar powered because
Yeah.
they're not going to run electric. to these
Exactly.
signs.
If
You're talking about
I'll ask the Englewood and all, because we have one supplier, and we should be able to see other suppliers too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan?
Question, so the county, without telling us, threw those signs up?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
They also replaced the
The ADA?
The ADA,
Right.
well, it's their road. I agree with you that they could have let us know, but they did the work
Which is
quickly,
good.
and they did it very
It's kind
well.
of like CSX repairing Central Avenue.
Exactly, they didn't let us know
We had
either.
no idea. If I didn't come in see them working, we would have known.
We waited over a year and they just showed up one
But
day
they
and
did
did
a
it.
nice job.
Well, if it makes us feel any better, they're doing the same thing in Englewood now, on Palisade Avenue, which shut down
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's what
noticed
that
the
was
traffic
today.
was bad.
Oh.
for days. yeah.
So, Jewel, so if I asked someone at the county if they can replace these regular signs with the light-up signs, would that make life easier for you?
Well, when you say would it make it easier, I mean, I'm not the traffic expert. But like I said, right now, the chief feels that what we have there is effective.
Is
I mean,
adequate, but
Yeah.
nobody would argue, Dan,
Yes.
that those
Would be
signs.
better.
It'd be better, so please do.
Yes, absolutely.
Please do.
If they'll substitute them at no
That's-
cost to
that's
the
what I mean,
borough,
yes,
we'll
that's what I
accept them.
mean.
You
Yeah,
done?
and we can
Yes,
give you
I'm done.
a
Thank
few
you.
more locations where they can.
All right,
We
folks.
do everything.
Let's
On
go,
their road.
let's go
This is their road.
to correspondence. There's two pieces of correspondence. The first is pretty perfunctory. It's a request from Lubavitch. They do the same thing every year for Hanukkah, menorah in Hyla Park, so that's fine. The second piece is from Mr. and Mrs. Silverman. They're actually over here tonight, and I'm going to ask the council for permission to at some point allow them to speak. But if you notice in your packet, there was some pictures, and it's basically, they sent them over to us. You'd be well served if you labeled them so that people knew what they were looking at. I knew because I had a discussion with your husband, but I'm sure the rest of them had no idea.
I wanted to discuss it with them.
Well, we're going to discuss it now, but we get these things in advance so we can look at them and know what you're going to talk about. But in any case, there was some stonework next door. The regulations say that when somebody's cutting stone, and usually it's done with an electric saw, and we probably all have witnessed it at one point or another, that water is thrown on the stone so that the dust does not go over. I spoke with the building department once I became aware of this issue, although it was long after the fact. They were done by the time somebody said something to me. And one of the issues, which I'm sure you'll hear about, was that the Silvermans made some calls down here, didn't feel they were acknowledged. I can't tell you that they responded if they didn't, but what I was told was that they spoke to the contractor, and the contractor tried putting water on this, and because of the nature of the stone, the water really didn't do the job. In fact, it really created more problems with the stone. So what I was told by the building department, the contractor told them that they tried to move this process as far away from the Silverman's house as possible. The work was being done on a corner house, and the Silvermans live on one side, the corner's on the other side. I'm obviously not a witness to it, so Mrs. Silverman, in 1,000 words or less, could you tell us
Yes.
what
I'll try
went down?
to make just a few points. They were not in compliance, obviously. I first made a point with the men who were working there. I personally spoke to the contractor twice before I went to both the building department and the health department. He said no, he had to keep the stone cutting where it was because it was difficult for his men. It was making kind of clay out of the stone dust and water. So I said to him, move to the other part of the property. Well, he replied, that wouldn't be possible because it would take too much time and he'd have to ask the homeowner to fuss up with more money. And I said to him quite honestly, well, you should have estimated this job more correctly, and that's your problem. You're creating a problem for us. And then I did go to the building department twice. The first time, I know a call was made to him because when I spoke to the contractor the second time, he said to me, are you the one that called? And I said, I certainly was. You're not complying.
So when you said you went to the building, you came down here or you made calls?
I came down here every time.
Okay.
Every time. And then the second visit to the building department, I came armed with those pictures plus other pictures. I said, you just have to do something. Then they said to me, you have to go to the health department. It's out of our hands. I run to the health department. They came up This guy did not stop. It was a question of catch me if you can. And I'm not going to stand out there all day and watch him. If he's not going to comply, somebody like that, as far as we are concerned, should have his permit taken away. The job site should be closed down. This is a deadly health issue. Silica dust is not something that you can say it's going to blow away. It's not going to affect you. It is deadly. You can look at any OSHA regulations. You can look at some of the papers that I gave to the town, and I don't know if they're on your iPads or not.
Yeah.
This is not
Yeah.
something to play around with. I didn't know how bad silica dust was until I started to research. It bombarded our kitchen, where Mort has his office, our AC units, our car. I found out there's a picture there that you can't determine what the heck it is. That's my car with stone dust. In the literature also, it says it's deadly on your car. I mean, the damage is done, and we are seriously considering getting outside testing. We are concerned it's in our house. Maybe it's in our AC unit. This stuff, you just don't faint from breathing it in once. It's in your body. It takes a while to work. And this shouldn't happen to anybody else in Tenafly. I'm here for everybody else also.
Well, let me say this, okay? First of all, as I said to your husband when he told me about this long after the fact, I was very upset. You have some paths that you could have followed that you didn't, and I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but when you don't get a response from, for example, the building department, and I'm not saying that's the case, but if you feel you're not being acknowledged, if you're not...
Promptly.
Right. You go to the borough administrator, who oversees and other options that people have always availed themselves are. They can call me, they have council people they can speak to. That's why we're here. And
But how would I know?
Well,
How would somebody know the chain of command?
Well, once again,
Yes, maybe I should have thought of you, Peter. It
Well,
was so
or
distressing.
really, the borough administrator oversees, if look, we all know, if you have a problem with a policeman, you ask for the chief, okay? It's the same thing here, she's the chief.
Okay, chief.
Okay, and believe me, enough people know it, I can't tell you that everybody knows the process. I personally will apologize to you because it doesn't feel like you were
It's not
dealt with
enough.
properly.
I mean, we feel the damage has been
Well,
done.
I know another issue is this is a neighbor-to-neighbor thing as well.
Well, I kept her out of it. I dealt with everyone else but her directly because I did not want it ever to be adversarial.
Well,
I know it's always good to have a middleman. Your last resort is to go, and then I wanted to avoid that, and I made that clear to the construction guy.
okay, well, if you have any tests done and there's damage, then you have a course of action.
I know.
Okay, we can. This is months ago. There's nothing that we can do now other than to find out why you weren't acknowledged better. Now, like I said, I went into the building department after speaking to Mort,
Yeah.
and this is what I was told, and I wasn't going to go any further until you came in because I knew you were going to come in. But I would ask our administrator, who oversees the employees there, to find out why it wasn't handled better. Okay, we let you down, and for that I apologize. Tony?
Follow up.
First of all, I'm sorry that it happened. It
Thank you.
should not have happened.
Thank you.
The building department is regulated by the Uniform Construction Code, which mandates that any construction that takes place, it must be under the control of the building department. Silica dust is controlled by OSHA. They have
I
a
know.
new standard, actually, that's
See, it
actually
just
law
came
now.
out. It just came out.
Just came out.
I know.
Every contractor that works with silica has to actually have a plan. Unfortunately, a great avenue would have been to call OSHA, and they would have come out here and
And they come out quickly.
slam the living hell out of them,
Good,
which
yeah.
they should have done, actually. It would take a lot for for the carcinogen to be settled into your body from silica.
I hope you're right.
No, I work,
Okay, good.
I teach OSHA all the time, so. I'm
Well,
just
Oh,
telling you.
good.
It's
But I will
affected
just tell you
his
this,
tennis
that-
game, I'll tell you
I
that.
know, he's told me that.
But it certainly should have never happened. To give a story that they can't wet it, that's a bunch of nonsense. Because there are saws that, listen,
Have water on?
they have something called engineering practices that they can use all different types of appliances, and there wouldn't be a speck of dust. They could go into a HEPA vacuum. So a lot of things they could do,
Yes.
and they just failed to. And it's not
And
right.
here's the caveat on the whole thing. After the site was resurveyed as built, and when all the permit paperwork was taken from the front of the house, somebody came back and did more cutting. And as he's cutting, he's looking up at our house to make sure I'm not there watching. Now you tell me, I mean, that is
All right,
the
we
final insight.
We get it, and I would ask that, Jewel, if there's anything you can tell the Silvermans, maybe you could leave your contact information with the
Okay.
clerk, or I certainly have your home number, I can give it to the clerk.
Can I just follow up? Do we still have, I don't know what you call him or her, but, there's like a subset of, like an inspector that goes out, like a property maintenance person?
Yeah, we have code enforcement.
No, property maintenance, that's,
Well, that's what they are. They
Yeah,
go
building
do
enforcement
property maintenance. The code enforcement people, that's what 90% of their work is, property maintenance.
no, you're not following me. The building department is the building department. We have a building inspector, we have electrical inspector. We hired somebody to go out and check for grass and all
Right,
that type of
two
thing,
We
right?
we have two people.
They work
Okay,
out.
do
have
they work during the day?
full-time
Yes, and they work
Oh,
out of the
yeah.
building department.
Yeah.
So why didn't they
Thank you,
go?
Mr. Silverman.
Okay.
Why didn't they go?
Well, that's
I'm not hearing that they didn't.
Well, we need to find
Yeah,
out. whether they
That's
went
what
to-
I will be following up with tomorrow,
Yes,
because she says.
So,
that
in my
it's
mind,
intimate.
first of all, like Tony, I
Yeah.
think, we apologize, it should not happen. A building construction should be enclosed within the site of the construction. Under no circumstances should it basically bother any neighbor. What we have to find out, Joel, and we need a response for the entire council, what happened, why the inspectors did not go and stop it, and what steps are going to be taken so something like that, it does not happen in the future. Because just to find out what happened, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, you're absolutely correct, and when you get a complaint of this nature, a call to the contractor is not sufficient.
Exactly.
It should be followed up with a visit.
Yeah, exactly,
We
and
now
visit
have-
and make sure that nobody gets
If it's an OSHA issue, then OSHA should always be called. And I know that they have been called in the past. I would want to know why they weren't contacted in this.
When you say you
instance.
know OSHA's been called in the past, who's called them? Us or the neighbors?
Both.
Okay,
They've been both.
okay. Well, so,
That's the whole idea.
They have shut down jobs.
but we have code enforcement officials now
Exactly.
that work practically every day. We have two people that are doing 20 hours each?
Yes.
Okay, so there's absolutely no
We
reason
have
why
we have full-time coverage.
there's no reason why somebody couldn't have gone up there.
Yeah.
He went up there once, but it didn't stop them. Nothing stopped them.
Well, once again, we've explained to you what else you could have done. It's not your fault that you didn't know
No.
to do it, but keep it in mind.
They should.
Okay, thank you.
But you know what I will do though, Peter? And I think it's a good idea. I will prepare an article to go for the newsletter, because I think it's a good idea.
Yes.
To send something out to the residents, to let them know what silica is all about. And listen, I assure you, they're not the, you just drive around Tenafly, you can see
Okay.
a cloud.
Yeah, no, I continually go into the building department and say, I was driving down the street and I saw,
Plume.
saw the dust.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what kind of dust it is, but it doesn't matter to me. There's no dust. No dust is supposed to be flying to somebody else's property,
That's correct.
regardless of how potent it is.
That's correct.
Any questions on the resolutions? Because eventually we're going to go into a public meeting, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, no, but the consent agenda needs to be amended to add a resolution. It's just, has to do with the tax title lien redemption because finance received a check today and the interest was calculated to today's date, so.
You have that resolution?
Yeah, it's just,
So that'll be T?
yes, 17,320. So it's just to amend the consent agenda for a
And
title.
do we have it?
No, it just came. and
You'll hand it
they
out
said-
to us?
I can make copies and hand it out.
Something for us will vote. We voted so many times blindly. But
I'll pass it along.
It's a
Okay.
redemption of a tax lien. right?
Under all,
Yeah. We received it this morning. I did next to everybody.
okay. Under old business, dog park location. Maybe we should have covered that when Lanny was here.
Yeah. We should have.
You're very welcome.
Workers wearing masks? Very
Who put that on?
I think that was me.
You put that on?
Yeah, I think, the issue is, we talked to Des about the dog park. We kind of settled, I think, that in a certain location that we were looking to have over here, basically east of the town hall. And it's time to make a decision, are we gonna do something?
Lucette, were we waiting for something from the engineer on this?
No, the last that was left was to stake out the area. on
Well, who's supposed to do that?
It was just
Yeah.
a stake out.
You
It
could've
didn't,
did
there was
the
anything that said that whether the engineer or building department that it would be
I
staked
feel like
out.
it's deja vu all over again. I know that was staked out once before,
It
many
was
years
staked out
ago.
years ago, but not
Well,
recently.
Jewel, would you see if we can get somebody to stake that out so we can all go look and see where
Yeah,
exactly where
and
it's
make
going
a
to be?
decision, we either build it or forget it.
Well,
Well, when we say
it's not that easy,
Right,
unfortunately. I mean, I'm a dog lover, but
yeah.
there's a process.
Are we still looking at a small dog section and a large
Yeah.
dog section?
Yes.
Yes. Nothing else.
Next,
Okay,
Well,
there,
we'll say nothing-
nothing else.
I mean, we're looking
water?
just the fence and the two locations, nothing, and
Just
the
stakes.
gravel,
Well,
nothing else.
we'll get there. First, let's get the location and make
Yeah.
sure that everybody
Okay.
understands it.
Now, the social services coordinated job description, since we have a meeting now set up, I'm gonna just
So
basically.
we'll save that for the
Okay,
next
exactly.
meeting.
Peter, can I just under old business? Did you get a chance
Yeah,
to,
or for the good of the order, or old business, whatever.
did you get a chance to talk to the building department about the sign?
Yeah, I actually spoke with the developer with the sign, well, the
The
naming
street
of the
sign,
street.
right.
I actually spoke with the developer, they gave me the name, and I called the guy, and he was very receptive to it. He said he has to speak to the powers to be, but I don't think there's any problem at all, they don't care.
It's fair.
This is 53 Knickerbocker.
Right, but what's it, fair?
What the?
Henry J. Forcia.
Foresee,
Henry Forcia.
So would you like it to be like a Henry J. Forcia Lane, or just Forcia Lane?
Oh,
No,
that's not the name I heard.
Well, the name you heard was Greenhaven.
No, the name I heard was Fair something.
Fairhaven? What was that, Paul, what was the name of the mansion?
It used to be something like Appledorn or something like that.
Well, in any case, I think we talked about this at the table. This gentleman was the only one who died in the line of action as a fireman
Yeah,
many years ago, and I think it's been nice to name the street
yeah,
after
but
him.
what was the name?
Well, his name is Forcia.
Henry J. Forcia.
So the developer seemed receptive. He's going to get back to me, Tony.
Okay.
All right, but I did speak with him today. Just as might as well do this here. Just a couple of things that I have. One is from the Sustainable New Jersey, New Jersey Mayor's Climate Summit. It's going to be on a Saturday in October in Somerset, New Jersey, which is just outside of New Brunswick. And there's a number of things that they're going to be discussing. There's a bunch of speakers. It runs from 9 to 1:30 on a Saturday, October 7th.
sorry.
If anybody is interested in that, go ahead.
The name of the street they're asking about is Fairway Court.
Okay, well, we're going to change that, I think.
Okay.
If anybody's interested, otherwise I'm going to give it to the Environmental Commission. The other thing I got was, and I will give this to the Senior Services Committee, is a letter from the New Jersey Office of the Attorney General in regards to suspected elder abuse. Max, you might be interested in this. They're interested in suspected elder abuse. I will give this to the Senior Services Committee. It just came in today. They're talking about, I think they provide cameras. So, in any case, they'll look at this, and that's what I have. If nobody has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to close the work session, take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back here and go into the public meeting.
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-minute break. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed as the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record, Suburbanite, Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Salute to the flag, please.
I'm sorry, I can't hear very well here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Barzalato?
Here.
Councilmember Bash?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Councilmember Spanowitz?
Here.
Councilmember Zena?
Here.
Mayor Russell?
Here. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes. August the 14th, the work session, the regular meeting, and the closed session.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm going to be voting abstaining, I was not here.
August
Revi-
14th?
Oh, it was, yes,
It was July you weren't here.
July, sorry, yes.
Revisions to the agenda.
Revisions to the agenda.
We have one, we're adding an item T, that's Resolution 17-320, and it's a redemption of tax lien.
Same one from before.
Okay. Now, for those that have waited this long, public comments. I'm going to go around the room once, and when I look at you, if you have something to say, please just raise your hand. Public comment? Yes. Just state your name and the street that you live on. You don't have to give us the street number, but we know where you live.
Jeff Grossman, Downey Drive.
We know you.
Yeah. So, last meeting, there was a very interesting presentation on the electric bill and potentials for saving money by going through different vendors. And I think that's great. One of the things, I don't know the last time the borough looked at and considered adding solar panels on top of the municipal building as a way of supplementing electric and what the potential cost savings might be over time for that. So I would just, as the electric issue is being looked at, if it has not been examined in a while, to look at whether or not that would be a cost efficiency or not for Tenafly.
Okay, I would tell you that we have discussed that in the past. The two factors that come to mind, one is that the way the buildings are aligned didn't advocate for that, and also a lot of the credits that were one time offered for that type of work are no longer available. But what we can do is, Jewel, why don't you just mention that a comment was made to Andy, and if he feels there's any reason to reopen it, we will, and if he doesn't, just let us know.
Because the technology is always.
Follow-up?
Yep.
Follow-up question? Jewel, the energy reverse auction we just went through, that one is 100% renewable, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Which is the one we purchased, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor Russell,
Thank you, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Neil Weissman. I'm of Complete George, which is an ad hoc coalition of 180 organizations, businesses, communities, and public officials calling for the widening pass on the George Washington Bridge as part of the upcoming recabling. You have copies of extended remarks. I'll try to keep mine short given the late hours. Also, the stuff is online at completegeorge.org. Between now and 2024, the Port Authority will rip out and replace all the cables that hold up the George Washington Bridge. That will involve ripping out the paths under them. These are the 1931 pedestrian paths, which have served wonderfully for this time, but we're now getting 3,700 cyclists a day on weekends, and that's increasing at 10% a year, which means we're on track for 9,000 cyclists a day by 2024. And there is no precedent for putting that many cyclists in such a narrow facility. They will have to make it a pedestrian path, and this is the only bikeable connection between North Jersey and New York City, and that's 10 million residents. If not, why? Yeah, they have to. If they don't widen it to comply with national standards, meaning AASHTO, which is what DOTs across the country use, it will cripple the growth of cycling across the region for generations, impacting tourism, public health, property taxes, sustainability, worth hundreds of millions of dollars per year. A wider GWB will spur construction of connected facilities throughout Bergen, and together that is the only viable strategy to draw down bus traffic into the Port Authority bus terminal. And this is important because winter is coming. And what I mean by that is over the next decade, we can expect upgrades to the Midtown bus terminal and Penn Station, and unless we are really lucky, replacement of the Hudson rail tunnels. And if they've got to do that, that is 75% of all the rail traffic between New York and New Jersey for 2 years. So if people think commuting sucks now, just wait. And as far as I know, there is no thinking in Bergen County to address this. Which means if people can't get to work for 2 years, or it takes them 3 hours each way, then being able to put 10,000 cyclists a day on the George Washington Bridge, and it's all from Fort Lee, it's 55 minutes to get to the Port Authority bus terminal. This is a doable commute. And even for people who are further out, you're saving seats for the people who got to travel further. Those who are in support include Congressman Pascrell, Assemblymember Puddle, the boroughs of Paramus, Fairlawn, Glen Rock, Elmwood Park, Cliffside Park, Edgewater, Fort Lee, and Englewood Cliffs, a dozen bike shops between here and here in Rockland, including bicycle workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just will say this, though. If that's the case, then New Jersey, Bergen County has to do something with 9W and bicyclists on 9W, because pretty soon there's going to be a lot of them getting killed because they're out of control. Out of control.
They have the plans in the books. The question is when they're going to implement it. I've also asked that this letter be CC'd to the Bergen County and to the councilman and to the freeholders.
A couple of things, Tony. First of all, I was part of a meeting, and I reported this to the council probably about a year ago. We met in Alpine. New Jersey DOT has plans for improving the bike lanes on 9W. I mean, serious plans. The problem, of course, where the bike lane, where bikers are coming from New York, is getting them up to basically Tenafly, because Englewood Cliffs is a very, very difficult situation. There's no shoulders. It would require a lot of work to create bike lanes in Englewood Cliffs, and even getting the bikers from Fort Lee. There doesn't seem to be a lot of cooperation with the Palisades State Park, because they are very, very serious about maintaining their green. They are not supportive of putting in a jogging path or a walking path or a bike path. I mean, I don't know if any of you ever have an opportunity to go up to Pelham Bay Park. But Pelham Bay Park, which is larger than Central Park, has a really, really nice system of bike/walking or jogging paths. It's along the Hutchinson River Parkway. I'm going to be calling one of the new commissioners of the Port Authority tomorrow on a separate issue, and I will mention this conversation I've had with her and see if she has any knowledge of what you've said, and if not, maybe we can start a little buzz there with some of the members of the Port Authority, Board of Directors. So, and I did connect Neil with Christine, who is working very hard on the Rails to Trails. Well, once again, all of these things are a long, drawn-out process, but biking is something that we should not turn our back on. the plans for the George Washington Bridge include improving bike ingress and egress, but do not do what he's suggesting, which is widen the bike path. And that, that would be something that should have a high priority for them, so it is what it is.
So I think that we should sign the letter on behalf of the council
We can do that.
and send it to the.
Lisette, you have the letter?
Hard copy, yes.
Okay, would you do what we have to do to mention that the Borough of Tenafly supports that?
Thank you.
My resume, either or.
Johanna Gambro, Ravine Road. I live on the same road as the Silvermans, and I experienced that stone dust. I was driving down to go wherever I was going, and the cloud was so dense, it enveloped my car. I couldn't see. I started coughing. I didn't know if anyone was behind me. It was absolutely awful, and it continued, and continued and continued. Mrs. Silverman enlisted my help and gave me the OSHA papers to read. And I developed a cough, and when I got close to the area where we live, I would start coughing, because it had gone to the trees, it had gone everywhere around, at least 3 or 4 blocks around us. So it was horrendous.
Well,
I
I'm
didn't know
very
what to do.
disappointed. The Silvermans are relatively new to the process, but you've been to more meetings than most of us.
Yes.
You should know
I
that
did
there
not
are
know.
avenues to voice these complaints.
I did not.
I'm sorry.
Look, you can blame the victim all you want.
I'm not blaming anybody, but
I did
we're-
not
we're
know
upset.
ever that I was supposed to go to the administrator. Ever.
Well, you don't unless you go to where you have to go, and
Well,
only if you're not
she
happy.
wanted to do the work, and she asked me to read the papers, but
Okay.
anyway, I think blaming the victim is the wrong approach. And the second thing was, you said that occasionally there are some complaints about skateboards downtown. It's not occasional. I have spoken about this for 3 years. It is every single day. The bikers, the kids on bikes, on skateboards, and their scooters, and there is an ordinance against it in Tenafly, in that block for Washington Street. Nothing is being done. The other day, I stopped some boys and I said, "Did you know it's illegal to ride your bike on the sidewalk?" And they said, "No, we were just walking down the block and the policeman waved at us." I was shocked. But it's every single day, every single day. And everyone, that's shop owners talk about it, I've talked about it for 3 years and it goes nowhere. Something has to be done before someone is hurt, because someone's going to be hurt. Again, the swim club issue. It says swim club parking lot. It is not the swim club's parking lot. It is the borough's parking lot. And it makes it look as if we're at fault. We're not at fault. I've been a member of that club for over 30 years.
Well, if you read their lease, you'd realize that they were supposed to maintain it.
Well, that's when we had the companion club. We did 50%.
The lease hasn't changed.
We did 50%, and that club did 50%. They closed, and there's no way that we can do 100%. Now, the other thing is, if you go down there, which I did once the club closed, and even before the club closed, the parking lot is used between 80 and 90% of the time by students at Tenafly High School. The seniors are allowed, that's their parking lot. And if you go down there any day, it is a scary situation, because the kids are riding on the bumpers and yelling and screaming. It's not supervised. And when they have games, that's where they park. So we don't own the parking lot. And so I think it should be called the municipal parking lot or the borough parking lot, because it makes the public think it's our fault. It's not our fault. And I'm shocked to my core that the borough would allow, something should be done. Something should be done. And then I heard the word community center mixed in with this.
They did that for you, Joanna.
What?
They did that for you.
Yeah.
They wanted you to hear that word.
Well,
See if you were
know
paying
what?
attention.
If you had been there on Labor Day for the picnic, that was the last day of the club, you would have seen how important that club is to the members who belong. And it was,
Nobody has ever disputed that, Joanne.
okay, but don't call it the swim, I've said it every time, and it's a swim club parking lot. Makes it look as if it's our fault. It's not our fault, and I've
Well,
been over that.
your club never maintained that parking lot, okay?
I have photographs of it being absolutely clear. I'll show them to you. Just a few years before, I was trying to get handicap spots that were legal. And I had to photograph that area and all up and down. It's completely smooth. The winter, about, I don't know how many years ago, several years ago, because the Board of Ed provides the snow plowing. And they didn't have a real snow plow. They had some square machine that was digging into and you think it's funny?
No,
I
I
was
don't.
there and watched him. And I said, what are you doing?
Why are you at the parking lot in the snowstorm?
It wasn't a snowstorm.
You said they're plowing snow.
After.
Okay. Anything else?
But, yes. You mentioned the bikers on 9W. Here's the problem. And I brought this up in another committee meeting where you were present. The bikers do not obey streetlights, and it's a law that they have to. So you're going up East Clinton, you want to turn into, when it's your turn, 9W. And all of a sudden, all these bikers go whizzing by. That's against the law. They have to obey the lights, and they don't.
They've been given tickets. We can't station an officer up there 24/7, but occasionally they're up there and they get
Well, you can give all the excuses
tickets.
you want, but until,
There's no excuses, Joanne, that's reality.
and I don't think you should encourage more bikers around there until somebody figures out how to handle these bikers going through red lights. And when I go up to Englewood Cliffs, in that big intersection where some people turn and go down and do other things, go to Edgewater, there's a lane where you can turn left. And sometimes the bikers are on this side, well, they are on this side, and they don't care. They just zoom right in front of you, putting their own, and they, it's something, I don't know what, I'm not a policeman, I don't know, maybe Tony has an idea. But enough is enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here because I got a letter that my home is.
Speak your name.
Oh, sorry, Belinda Castana Highway, that my home is being considered for historic designation.
Okay. What's your street address?
93 Highway.
Okay.
I'm not interested in historic designation. I maintain the home to the historic.
Did you go to the meeting where they were talking about your home?
I did, and I told them that I wanted to think about it because it was the first time I had ever, I've only owned the home 2 years.
Paul is our liaison with the HPC. What is the status of 93 Highwood now? It hasn't been designated yet.
No, but tonight's the first reading.
First reading here?
Yes.
Okay. So then you came in a timely manner, so you're not supportive of your house being designated?
I maintain it. I've decided to maintain all the exterior to the historic standards on my own because I appreciate it. And that's why I bought the house, but I prefer not to have a historic designation.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak? Paul,
George, he didn't hear you before.
did you want to speak, George?
He's
I
the
would
other.
if you'd let me.
Now's the time.
Okay. First thing I would like to share with you is that I am terribly impressed by the thought and effort that you individually and collectively put into the operation of this wonderful town. This is the first time I've sat in a working session, I think, since I've been in Tenafly. And I am impressed, and I thank you for your service. So that's the first comment I want to make.
Okay, just to let the people know, your address on Highwood is what, 80?
89 Highwood.
You're the neighbor of this young lady, and the two of them together have these homes that are
They
really...
both attended the same hearing.
And nobody's going to dispute their special homes, and the HPC feels they should be designated. So, go ahead, George, now that they know who you are.
Well, I don't disagree with the HPC. But I want to point out that I think that the designation of a historical district and designation of a historical, of a house as being historical by ordinance rather than consent. For many years it was by consent. Because you guys have been after me for years to do consent, is really eminent domain. The use of a government power, which you have, and I don't challenge, to place an encumbrance on private property. And when you have your second meeting, I would like you to consider that. Because in essence, what you are doing is potentially creating guidelines which may not be acceptable to the next owner of that property. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to have that property for the next 140 years. You know, that's about how old my house is. You know, I'd love to be able to keep it that long, but it's not going to happen. So sooner or later, my family is going to have to deal with the disposition of that house. And I don't know what impact, at this point, designation of historical will have on my family, but that's a problem I have to face. But I will tell you that Martha Gerge, who was a very close friend of mine, advocated historical status for that house. And she did not think, in her professional opinion, that historical status would impact my house. So I'm saying this sort of to give you an owner's insight into an action that you are about to take. And I don't contest your right to take that action. I think that's a pretty well-trod path that you have that right. So that's all I have to say here.
I'm going to close the public comment section because everybody's had an opportunity to speak, but I'm going to speak to George and to you as well. And Paul or Bill, if I say something incorrect, please correct me because I want you to understand the process, okay, and the history. The Historic Preservation Commission has been criticized in the past for not being more proactive. We've lost some properties here, such as 53 Knickerbocker, Charlie Brown's, primarily because the owners did not want their homes or their businesses designated. And as a result, the HPC did not move forward on it. Now, everybody, I think, considers your homes to be a treasure, one that we'd like to see preserved. So the Historic Preservation Commission has taken that criticism to heart and has become more proactive. And they have decided that they want to recommend. They cannot designate the homes historic. Only the mayor and council can do that, and that would be the purpose of these ordinances if we approved them. But they proceeded with this process, and every step of the way, George, you and I go back a long way. I was very interested in your response and your response to this process. And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, I was told that although you asked for more information, at no point in time did they get the impression that you were opposed to the designation.
Correct.
I don't think I conveyed that to, when I was at the committee.
Yeah, I didn't think you said you were opposed. I think you said you agreed with the HPC even tonight.
So now,
It didn't precipitate us trying to
now we're at the point
elevate it.
where the mayor and council has a hearing, first reading, and then next meeting, a second and final reading where we take a vote on whether or not to designate your property.
I just don't see any benefit to me as a homeowner by designating.
Okay, well, that's your, you have historic people that will argue with you.
Right.
But the final arbiter here is the mayor and council as to whether we're going to designate your homes. And it's very...
Decimating.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, decimating.
Designating your homes historic.
I'm sorry.
You made some very positive comments about the process tonight, and I'm wondering if it's because of the hearing isn't so good. Maybe the process isn't that good. But in any case, you came tonight, which is a very important thing that you did, because you're adding to the equation that we have to evaluate. And I can't speak for the there's 5 members of the council here, how they're going to weigh your feelings in on this. You're right about it's comparing it to eminent domain, because we do have the ability, whether you like it or not, to designate your homes. But I know, me as an elected official, I would take into account your feelings, not necessarily vote no strictly because of that.
I would understand if there was some concern that, I've owned the home for 2 years and I've done nothing but try to restore it back. I mean, I don't know if anyone's driven by. I've painted it, I've corrected windows, I've done nothing but try and...
But Charlie Brown's was, and the house on 53 Knickerbocker were there for 100 years and nobody did anything, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And it was too late to stop it. So I understand where the HPC is coming from, and like you said, nobody's going to disagree. These homes are worth preserving. The question becomes, George, you sell your home and maybe the next guy wants to knock it down.
That's probably going to be the case, because that seems to be happening up and down our street.
No, well, I know. So this decision, which is a really tough decision, is going to rest on the shoulders of the council, and hopefully there won't be a tie, so it doesn't rest on my shoulders. But in any case, the toughest situation I have met as a mayor was Park Street. When Park Street was, and you might remember it, when Park Street was in the same position, and of course it came down to a 3-3 vote. Keep in mind, there's only 5 of you; it can't be a tie. But in any case, you did the right thing in coming tonight. And we do vote tonight, but it's not a final vote, correct, Lisette?
Correct. Is Park Street a historical district?
Well, that's the peculiar part about Park Street. I cast a vote yes. In this particular case, there were about 20 homeowners, and it came down, 10 were in favor of it, 10 were opposed to it. This was a district, not just a house, and a district where every house in the street would be declared historic. And this was a very, very contentious situation. The big room was filled with these residents and their friends. It was voted yes, and then a few months later, one of the council people changed their mind. We brought it up again, and it was voted no.
So it's not historic.
And it's not historic. And the interesting part about it is the people, a lot of people that voted in opposition to it soon moved out, even though it wasn't declared historic. So I'm not suggesting that either you have to move. The final decision will be made at our next council meeting, but you might get an inclination. If we vote this down tonight...
October 20th.
October.
Okay, if we vote no tonight, is it still in October?
It's open.
Okay, so there are two opportunities for this council to say no. If they say yes tonight, they can still say no on October 22nd. And my thought, I'll give you my 2 cents, is I have no problem voting yes tonight, but asking the HPC to come in at our next meeting, which is prior to October 22nd, to give us a sense of how they feel about it, because I think what you
Well,
said
you know how
tonight...
they feel about it, they want to designate.
No, but that you didn't tell them at their meeting that you didn't want it. That adds
Well,
to their...
it was the first time that it was presented.
Well, that's fine. Well, they've talked about it on many occasions.
Excuse me, may
And
I
I...
speak?
Huh?
Is there an opportunity for me to speak at some point?
Yeah, you can speak, can she speak at that when we go to the public hearing?
No, because it's not public hearing, it's being introduced. There's no
Okay.
public comment.
We have the president, the chair of the HPC here. I would ask the council, give her an opportunity to speak.
Have no problem, no problem whatsoever.
So
Just
we
say-
consider
just say the
this.
name for the-
My name is Karen News. I'm at 330 Engle Street. I'm the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I've been a member for 10 years. I also happen to live in a house that is a landmarked house, so I am subject to the same provisions of the Historic Preservation Ordinance that
Speak up,
these...
because George is hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Farley. I said I'm at one of your neighbors at 330 Engle Street, and
I know.
I live in a house that is now subject to the same provisions of the Historic Preservation Ordinance that your property would be subject to if it was designated. And there are actually 45 houses in Tenafly that are subject to the Historic Preservation Ordinance. And these are people that own their homes, and when they need to make repairs or changes, alterations to their home, and they have to apply for a permit at the building office, which is normal to anyone that owns a home and wants to make repairs in the town of Tenafly. You have to normally apply for permits. There's an extra layer of approval. And there are 45 neighbors that in this town that are subject to these provisions, and we get some of these certificates of appropriateness every year, every month. We get a lot in the spring because that's when people plan their repairs, and we evaluate them. It doesn't stop people from making the repairs that they want to make, and the repairs that you've made. You know, we're so happy to see that somebody has bought an important house in Tenafly and invested their time and money and effort into that process. The HPC had two meetings at which they considered the designation of these houses, and these two homeowners came to the first meeting. At the second meeting, we continued our discussion and we voted to recommend these houses for designation. And then they went to the planning board, and I know that the planning board considered it and agreed or took their own vote and agreed that these houses deserve designation. And then it comes back to the mayor and council. So there are many opportunities that
I didn't realize that
you
there was
all-
another meeting that we could have
Well,
gone
there's
to.
a process, and
Yeah.
it's the same process that any property in Tenafly is subject to, and we heard what you...
We went to the first meeting, had we known the second meeting was going on and that the homes was gonna be discussed again, I probably would have gone there, because as you know, I'm doing, listen, I don't have a problem with having a second layer of approval, and if I would do that. My problem is that one day I'm gonna wanna sell this home, and people have a negative designation about these, designations, and from a resale perspective, you would imagine that someone who's interested in a historic looking home is interested in it because they want to preserve it, or because they want to live in something like it, but, I don't want to, your home is one of your biggest assets, and so you don't want to prevent being able to get whatever sale amount you can, and right now, I could care less, but 20 years from now, or when my kids are out of college and I want to leave, I'm going to want to get, but I can't imagine ever selling it, to be quite honest with you, because I love the house and that's what I'm spending all my time. I just have a, sort of democratic issue with someone designating something on my house without me having a say in it.
Well, that's
It's the
what's-
whole eminent domain thing.
That's what's
It's-
going to
it's
make this
eminent domain.
decision difficult for us. It's really once again, one of those battles, the rights of the property owner versus the rights of the community.
And I
There
think
isn't
there
anybody-
should have been some, you said you've been trying to designate these homes for years. I had no idea. When I
No,
looked
no,
at them,
no, no, that's
No,
not
that's not-
accurate.
that's not
I
correct.
no one
haven't
told
been, I
us.
haven't
Oh, George
been
was
des-
saying. George had mentioned that. They didn't
Well,
tell us.
no,
We only took it up at the meeting that you attended back in the spring, and, you know, this is
And I
one
realize
of
that's
many-
accelerated because of the homes that were lost recently.
well, no, it
It's not
really hasn't been
It's that we finally
accelerated.
had time to deal with it. We have a lot of issues before the HBC, and we finally were able, for instance, 87 County Road and 53 Knickerbocker, those were long contentious issues. We only have 7 volunteer members on our commission. We can't
But how are
go
those
at
long
it.
issues in designating our home as, you know, we met not even 6 months ago, and now this is sort of, you're saying next month it's gonna be voted.
Well, you know,
That's
it's
the process.
it's
It's a
not like it's
process, like
being
any-
done
This
overnight
is-
or without your notice.
Yeah, but this conversation is not proper now,
Well,
between the two members of the public.
Well, I'm going to close the public comments section now, but I'm going to suggest to the council
Yeah.
that we put this on the agenda for the next work session. We offer the HPC the opportunity to come in and to speak, and I would urge both of you to come to that meeting. You could speak as well, because you've added something to the equation by coming here tonight and saying we don't want our houses designated. If that had been done at the HPC level, I don't know. Maybe they would have recommended it anyway. In the past, that's why 53 Knickerbocker didn't get designated. That's why Charlie Brown's didn't get designated. But, you know, because they really didn't hear any no's from you folks, they moved it along, which is what many of us have suggested to them, because we don't want to lose your homes. And you know, the one thing that I wonder, and look, I understand if you're going to sell your homes, whether it's next year or in 20
And I'm not
years.
even worried about that, to be honest with you.
Well-
My kids are in 6th and
But
7th
that's-
grade.
that's
But
what
I'm
we-
doing, like,
that's what
the
I-
building inspector knocked my garage down because it was
But that's
unsafe.
what we
But now I
heard.
have to build a new garage. And so financially, I cannot afford to build, you know, what was there historically. I can't, I literally cannot.
Well, have you
And-
presented plans to the HPC?
No, because
That-
my house isn't historic, so I don't have to. My plans are being presented to,
Well, I understand that, but.
whatever. I
but-
mean, I'm going through the proper
but
channels.
You seem to care about your home, about the historic aspects of your home. Even though you're not bound by the HPC,
Right.
it's conceivable that they might even be able to help you create a garage that not only is what you want, but would meet their standards. It's possible. They may turn around and give you a plan that costs more than you want to spend. Well, then you're not obligated because you're not designated.
But I'm obligated to build a garage. If I'm designated.
Well, that's not a law of the HPC, that's the law of the town. It's a land use law.
Right. No,
You
I know
have to have
that,
a garage.
but like you're saying, if they come and say, well, you need to
But
do
they haven't done that yet.
this,
It doesn't face the
But-
street, it's not under the purveyance of the HPC
Right,
anyway.
right.
What you do with your
if I put it
backyard.
behind the house, you said that.
Yeah.
last
So
time.
in any case, let's go ahead and move forward on, nothing's gonna be done in stone tonight.
Could I make one more suggestion?
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for designation of a home as historical is that you want, when people come through our town, you want them to see these houses. Otherwise, why would you want them preserved? So, I think you should remember that you want them to see well-maintained houses. And old homes are not cheap. I can tell you that. And actually, you've been in your house a long time, so you're probably.
Yeah,
getting
my
to that
house is
area.
old, but it's not historic, and it's not cheap.
It's just Peter's historic, that's all.
I'm just saying, when you consider this historical, take a wider view of all 45 houses in town, and consider what the impact would be if you were to give some kind of tax relief along with that designation.
Well, I wish we could do that, but we don't have the ability to do
You
that.
absolutely do have the ability to do that. I've looked into that, you absolutely do.
Maybe you're gonna give us the information.
What?
Maybe you're gonna give us the information how we can do that.
Because that sort of helps on the resale argument.
Yeah, I understand. If you can give us the information, our legal ego tells us no.
No, well, the only way.
I never listen to you, man.
I will help you with that, I'll talk to Greg Neal.
All right, listen,
Okay.
yes.
What can be done instead of introducing?
Hold on. George, hold on.
What could be done instead of introducing, when it comes to that point, you can make a motion to table, discuss it at the September 26th work session, and then depending what happens, based on that discussion, you want to bring it to be introduced again, there's still time in our council calendar year where it could be introduced the first meeting of October and heard in November.
Okay. Well, but that's really, we could also approve it tonight,
You could approve it tonight.
and
you
then
could-
bring it, discuss it on the 26th, and have a final vote. I don't want to drag this out. I don't think we're going to have any really new information coming our way, but the only thing new is I'd like the HPC to weigh in on this again, now that they know that the homeowners are not in support of the designation. Then they may still recommend it and throw it on our laps, or they may decide, well, who knows what they're
We
going to
already
decide.
know the decision.
So, we'll move
Do we
on.
have an idea of what you would vote if you voted today?
Well, you'll hear in a second. We're going to vote today.
This is just to, so you can have it here. This is just introduced.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Okay, so,
I might mention too that the HPC doesn't meet again until October 5th.
well,
so
you'll have to, you can reach
it would
out to
be
them.
difficult
I'm not
to issue
suggesting.
a new opinion before then. I can certainly come and make a presentation, but in order to render a new opinion,
You might want to have another meeting. You can do that if you care
Greg
to.
Neal, write up a paper.
Where are we on this now?
Committee reports now.
Are we on the consent?
We're
We're on the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended with the addition of T.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes, with the exception of the expenditures, I'm gonna abstain. I
What
didn't have
number?
a chance. I didn't have a chance to go through that.
Okay. Councilman Park?
Yes.
Councilman Stefanowicz?
Yes.
Councilman Zima?
Yes.
Okay. Committee reports. Paul, you have anything?
The Board of Health met, and I think this is part of the Mayor's Wellness Program, Peter. The flu clinic is on September 29th, the annual flu clinic. Flu shots are $20 this year, which is $5 better than they've been in the past. They got a better rate. And there is an Alzheimer's 101 discussion at the library on Thursday, September 28th.
Thank you. Max, you have anything?
We have nothing.
Paul, Dan?
The CAP met yesterday with the school board's OK coalition group. They're getting ready to prep for the same anti-drug, anti-drinking programs for the school year.
Mark?
So the Tenafly Chamber of Commerce wants to remind everyone that Coffee Week is coming up September 22nd through October 1st. And what I'm handing out now are from Christine to go visit all the places that sell coffee. They'll give you a cup of coffee. If you're so inclined, give Christine $10.
No, give the rec department.
And it goes to the rec department for the youth recs program. So
We
it's a
don't
good
give
cause.
Christine nothing.
What'd you say?
We don't give Christine
It's
nothing.
$20 for you, Max. It's $10 for everybody else. Jewel and Mayor, we had a meeting with TVAC a week ago. One of the things they want to stress, while it's getting very early for the budget process, but they're going to be looking for a new ambulance this year. And they asked me to bring that up so we all are aware their requisition's coming down the pike.
Where are they looking?
They're looking, that's a good question. They're looking for us. They've actually gone to look at vehicles. So they'll have more information on that.
Well, you know, the last one we got through the auspices of Senator Weinberg. Maybe we ought to reach out to her and tell her it's time.
That's a good idea.
All right, or even Bill Pascrell, our congressman. is well-known for working with first responders. I think before we consider budgeting for something like that, we ought to explore both of those avenues.
It's a good idea.
Anybody want to volunteer to discuss these issues with either of those?
Yes.
Two
I'll
elected?
talk to Loretta.
Okay,
I got Pascal.
thank you.
See, that was very useful.
Man,
Everyone
you're
gonna-
so good. You gave us tasks.
There we go, perfect. Recreation wasn't able to meet last night, so we'll have the meeting next month. That's it.
Tony, you have anything? No. We had a COA meeting about a week or so ago, and one of the things we were talking about is the potential to settle our case with fair share housing. This would be subject to court approval, of course. A lot of municipalities are going that route rather than enduring lengthy and expensive court cases, which could end up with less favorable decisions than if you settle. So at this particular point in time, we have our COA attorney and our planner going to see what they can bring to us. The COA committee agreed that this is something we should explore, and it's a long process, but I'll report back to you, or Mark is on that committee as well, should any progress be made in that part. Mayor's had a breakfast this morning, and Michael Dorsey, who is the new director of the League of Municipalities, was there, and we talked in great length about the expiration of the 2% cap on fire and police pensions. That's going to expire, is it October 31st or towards the end?
Pensions?
December 31st.
I'm sorry?
On pensions?
I'm sorry?
End of this year, December 31st.
December 31st. If that cap expires, then in the arbiters that decide these cases can decide them higher than 2%, which
But
is...
not pensions, you said pensions?
Yes.
Well,
Well,
the arbitration law for PBAs,
For PBAs and
Yeah, but for the
Fire.
salaries, not pensions, no?
not pensions.
I'm sorry?
The 2% salary
Salary
cap.
cap.
Salaries. That's what it was.
So they urged everybody to, deal with their legislators, and we passed a resolution supporting the extension. Actually, what we supported was a permanent 2% cap, or a permanent cap equal to whatever the property tax cap is. We sent that out in July. I'm going to resend it to all of our representatives in an effort to just reinstitute, because this is coming up in the legislature. And apparently, a lot of the legislators felt that they were misinformed, that's a polite way of putting it, in the discussions with the state PBA as far as what they were looking to have passed. So right now it's up in the air, and hopefully the legislators will put something together that, in support of municipalities, because we all know we have a 2% cap, and we start giving things in any aspect of our business greater than 2%, we have to take it away from some other part of our budget. So that's it. And anybody have any old business? Then under new business, we're going to do a couple of these ordinances. I'll entertain a motion to introduce and pass on first reading 17-15 and 17-16. We'll hold 17 and 17 aside. We'll do that separately. Is that okay? Could I get a motion?
I move to introduce and pass on first reading ordinances 1715 and 1716, and set the hearing for September 26, 2017, at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter in the council chambers of the Tenafly Municipal Center.
A second, please?
Second.
Please call the roll.
I'll have to read the title. Ordinance number 17-15, an ordinance to amend the title, salary, wage, or compensation of the employees of the Tenafly Administrative Employees Bargaining Unit for the calendar years 2017, 2018, and 2019. Ordinance number 17-16, an ordinance to fix the salary, wage, and compensation of certain management, administrative, civilian dispatchers, and part-time employees of the Borough of Tenafly in the County of Bergen and State of New Jersey for the calendar years 2017, 2018, and 2019. Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefanowitz?
Yes.
Councilmember Zeno?
Yes.
Okay, now this is 17-17, which
Mayor?
is, yes.
I'll make a motion to table the introduction of ordinance 1717 to listen to further discussion and try to get everything straightened
Well,
out.
keep in mind that we could pass this for the first reading,
Mhm.
still discuss it at the meeting on September 26th, and then if we could vote, the final vote, on October 12th. If we table it, it sets it back significantly.
All right.
And I'm not sure that there's a lot, I'm not sure
Then I'll
there's,
withdraw.
I'm not sure there's a lot to discuss other than to make the HPC aware of the fact that the residents are here and opposed to it. They can then tell us they either want to maintain the recommendation or withdraw the recommendation.
Understood.
All right, and then we can vote, either way, we can still vote yes or no on October 12th.
24th.
24th? Okay, so,
We're after October 24th then.
so I'll
Okay, since this is a zoning ordinance, there has to be a 35-day window for the
Right.
planning board to issue comments. What would happen on September 26th is just, it would be a work session discussion, no action will be taken one
Correct.
way or another.
Correct. Motion, please?
Want me to read it?
Paul.
Go ahead, Paul, read it.
Oh, all right. I make a motion for 1717, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Borough of Tenafly, adopted on February 9th, 2016, and to amend the supplement the land development regulations of the Borough of Tenafly to designate certain properties borough historic.
A second, please?
Second?
Who's that?
Okay, and setting the hearing for October 24th. Ordinance number 17-17, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the Borough of Tenafly adopted on February 9, 2016, and to amend and supplement the land development regulations of the Borough of Tenafly to designate certain properties within the Borough historic as set forth in the Historic Preservation Plan of the Master Plan of the Borough of Tenafly and amending Chapter 35 of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Land Development Regulations. Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefanowitz?
Yes.
Councilmember Zeno?
Yes.
Okay, just so you understand, we will be discussing this again at our next meeting with some input from the HPC, and then voting, if the HPC wants to hold their recommendation, then we will vote, either way, we'll vote on it, but if they withdraw their recommendation, I can't imagine the mayor and council approving it. So this way, rather than draw it out and have this process go on for another two plus months, I think that makes the most sense. So we should have a final answer on October 26th?
Fourth.
October 24th.
24th is final, the second vote
Yes.
of October.
Yes, but we are going to discuss it again, just discuss it, not vote on it, at the next work session, which is September 26th?
Yes.
Okay, with some input from the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor's remarks.
Well, as far as the mayor's remarks are concerned, once again, and I relayed this to a few of you earlier, I just want to go back to the vote for bonding and just repeat, because this is just my opinion, and obviously it's a minority opinion, that I prefer to avoid bonding wherever possible, because I think debt is not a positive thing for our town. And I also have a serious problem when we have all of our professionals recommending something, and we, laymen that we are, liaisons with the community, however, choose to not agree with the professionals. I don't for 1 second like the idea of using open space money for a parking lot. I concur with your feelings on that. However, technically it does meet the standards of our open space fund, and I would have preferred going the other way, and I'm done with it because we're going to move forward with the bonding, and it doesn't seem like it will have an impact on the ability to get the parking lot done in the same time frame. So be it. So we go into closed session now?
Yes. Resolve the compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the mayor and council go into closed executive session to discuss the following matters. We have a bunch of personnel matters. The first is on DPW investigative update on the investigation, and then the second part is got our director search and an update on that. We have a discussion on fire department sick leave application, and then the second thing is collective bargaining. It's going to be an update on our contract negotiations. Minutes will be taken in the meeting and released to the public at the time the matters are resolved. After this closed executive session, the mayor and council will reconvene in this Richard D. Wilson committee room to adjourn this public meeting.
Motion, please.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we?